Well, the Helldivers community has taken to Revolt and Treason as a response to the nerfs in the game. Many now calling for Super Earth and major orders to be completely abandoned, while some simply just have not come back or did not come back for very long. In my previous coverage, where I argued that nerfs are not the answer, I really advocated for a complete shift in philosophy, mainly one that looks at the game as an opportunity to create a swinging pendulum of chaos, where you're doing research and development weapons that are experimental and chaotic and crazy, and then you know they won't stay like that for forever. So you essentially create a context where players understand there will be really, really strong weapons and stratagems, and then there'll be something else that's really strong. And people seem to really like that idea. So if you haven't checked out that video, be sure to check it out. It just basically argues that nerfs are not the answer. I walk through why it doesn't work, why buffing everything doesn't work either. That's something that the CEO has recently replied to. That is included in my latest video. My latest video, my brand new video, is that the nerfs have led to treason. That the unique nature of Helldivers may end up leading to unique outcomes here. They, before the game came out, even said they weren't really sure where things were going to end up, because we can dictate what happens in the game with the Galactic War Table and whether or not we do certain things or succeed at certain missions or major orders. And if the community decides, number one, that they're not going to play, as the player name numbers don't seem to indicate that the game is dead, but it certainly indicates that people didn't come back and stay. They kind of came back, they checked it out, and then they walked away again. But now that they can, largely, even if they are playing the game, they can focus their efforts on other things. They can refuse to complete the major orders. That is certainly something for the devs to consider. And I fundamentally think the conclusion here that many are starting to draw is that the devs are a little bit in over their head. And I have sympathy for that. I do. I don't think this is something that they are trying to do. I don't think it's not like a willful form of being malicious toward the community. I think some people have really turned this into like they hate us and they don't want us to be happy. I do think that is overstating the case. I do not think they're like actively being antagonistic to the community. I don't think they've done the greatest job with communication and then making good on that communication. And so I feel like my camera is acting funny. I don't know if that's I don't know what's going on. It could just be OBS preview. Anyway, I do feel that they're trying their best, and I hope they find their way. And if you haven't checked out that video largely walks through why I think they're going to have to figure out a way to make sure that updates are happening faster and better. And then I sort of conclude with, we don't really know what the ending of this will be. We don't know where this leads to a happy ending and players feeling like they were listened to, or is it going to lead to something else? So we'll see. But always make sure when you're here that you check out that morning video, that morning upload, and that way you can know what I think. And now it's time to hear what you think. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys. Make sure you go through that morning ritual, man. Smash that like button. That's the first thing to do every day to help out the video, to help us get a bunch of folks in here. We had a really great day yesterday talking Bungie and Destiny and Marathon. And boy, oh boy, there are people who agree and don't agree with a lot of what I said yesterday. So make sure and check out those videos, as well as today's video about Helldivers. And Behemoth comes back in with 41 months and a VIP Plus, says 41 months of amazing content and great community. Thanks, Lono, for the great content. Thank you so much, Behemoth, for bumping that line, guys. VIP, Member Plus and above. Member Plus and above bumps the line. And Behemoth is going to bump the line right away with a huge 20 bomb. This guy doesn't even let us get started before he starts making it rain. If you guys get a gifted membership from Behemoth, be sure to say thank you to him for doing that. We have been saying that we would like to see, people at Member Plus and above to be at 500 members. We're currently at 497. We're right there. A lot of you guys have upgraded, but we're always losing and gaining some because people have to renew. So make sure you're celebrating those renewals. And Joker Quinn gifts a member as well and rounds out the member count for the week to 80. Thank you so much. And I know a lot of you guys can't make it to Friday nights. We do a Friday night member stream, so we will do some Saturday IRL streams or Saturday community game streams if you guys hit those milestones of Member Plus. We are shooting for 1,000, so we're just going to kind of walk it all the way up there, 500 being sort of the first milestone on the road. And Omega renews his membership, 33 months. He says, congrats on 40,000 subs. Thank you so much. We did hit 40,000 subs yesterday. I was kind of watching the videos. The Bungie video was just absolutely cooking. And I went into the Discord and I said, we're hitting 40K today. It's happening. You could just kind of see the writing on the wall there. In a good way, you could see the writing on the wall. So very, very, very pleased. Very, very pleased with how far we've come. You guys have been amazing. We've been streaming on this channel. We came over here. We only had about 5,000 subscribers. We came over here about 3 years ago. So that's been just a wild ride. So thank you to everybody who made it possible. Thank you to everybody who also, believed in this idea that we could pivot into variety gaming coverage, and Crowded House says, I just feel the game needs more. It feels like an old arcade game to me. After you played about 15 minutes, you've basically seen everything the game has to offer. I watched a really interesting video this morning. Let me go to my video history. I want to give credit to the video as well as the channel that put it together. I don't want to just reference it. There was a video put out by the channel. Oh my goodness, I'm going to butcher the name. Ratatosker, whatever. The problem with Helldivers 2. And I'm not sure what type of content he typically makes. I found it to be, easy to listen to and well-structured argumentation. But his video did very, very well. The thumbnail says escalation of boredom. And I'm going to walk through what he argued a little bit with you guys this morning, too, just as kind of like an ad hoc reaction, because I thought it was very insightful on a certain number of things. And then a member plus from Graybush says, time to start year 2. Thank you for 13 months. And then a gifted member as well coming in from Patrick Q. And then a renewal from Noberto. That's 3 right there, taking us to 84. Those renewals count towards the count. Ratatosker. Oh, Ratatosker? Okay, thank you. Noberto says, so happy to see you hitting milestones. Can't wait till you blow past the tippity top and you keep soaring. I appreciate that, Noberto. So his video I thought was actually well articulated and very well done. And there's a lot of videos like that now where they just kind of put up the gameplay and they very thoughtfully interact with the topic and walk through a script. And I appreciate it because I know the work that goes into script writing. Ant comes in and renews the VIP and says new badge day. There it is, 36 months, 3 whole years. You the man, getting us a little bit closer to the first 100 for the week. And his essential argument was that, well, there's no end game reward structure, right? And he kind of walked through how it doesn't really matter what you do. You're kind of always getting the same stuff. And even when you do some of the hardest content, the reward structure is not all that good. And I forget now. He compared it to Deep Rock Galactic, which I thought was really interesting because, Deep Rock Galactic was never as popular as Helldivers, but he showed that they've been able to maintain a player base and they've got a little bit of a resurgence going. He kind of walked through how playing the harder content in Deep Rock leads to better stuff, better rewards, and why that works, because you're basically I'm being rewarded for my time, essentially. And so he thinks there should be something like that in Helldivers 2. And I both agreed, but I also disagreed because I was I don't really know if Helldivers is the kind of game that works with weapon upgrades or stratagem upgrades. Could you make weapons and stratagem stronger simply because you've been playing for longer? Congrats on 40K. Thank you, Grim. I really enjoy Deep Rock Galactic. I was trying to get my wife into it, and we ended up playing Cult of the Lamb last night because they added their co-op update, and we had a really good time with it. We just couldn't figure out how to get enough wood to build the next thing. We kept stalling out. I was why aren't we getting wood? We skipped over building the lumberyard. I was so focused on the characters and making beds and going on missions, I just completely ignored the lumberyard. And I was I think we missed an important part. So we fixed it. We ended up getting the lumberyard and we were having a good time with it. But yeah, I wanted her to get into Deep Rock Galactic because it kind of reminded me a little bit of Borderlands. It's almost like Borderlands meets Helldivers at some level. You go down, it's irreverent and fun, and you're killing stuff and you're getting stuff. And I actually liked his idea that what if when you went and did harder Helldivers 2 content, what if you were getting, rewarded for that? What if you were getting, better stuff, and you know, finding or I'm sorry, investing in upgrades or something like that. And I think the idea was, oh, well, there are upgrades for your ship that if you don't run the hardest content, you know, you're not going to get the materials for those upgrades. And I think that's a decent place to start. But I do kind of wonder if, and this is where my R&D idea could come into play here, right? Have like a research and development station on the ship. And I called it the R&DFD, right? Research and Development for Democracy. And maybe instead of just giving you experimental weapons, you know, every season or war bonds so that there's like crazy, chaotic, fun weapons to try out and mess around with, you know, maybe they could also afford you opportunities to invest in your existing weapons, you know, like invest in this idea of like maybe you can augment a weapon, maybe you can make a weapon a little bit stronger. You know, we kind of had that idea with, you know, when we were talking about the experimental weapons. It's like, well, isn't everybody just going to use the experimental weapons? I was like, well, no, you could make environments where they're less effective, so you are still rotating back into, you know, other weapons or other builds, but maybe then you are benefiting. You're getting stuff to augment or improve or upgrade existing weapons or, you know, the experimental weapons or what have you. Proudly Toxic. That's a great name. Hopefully you're not toxic. It says, Helldivers 1 had gun and stratagem upgrade trees. Helldivers 2, unfortunately, will never have this because the weapon variants you have from the war bonds are essentially what you used to get in 1. So that, I think, gets at kind of the heart of the issue, that they seemingly were trying to figure out a way to maintain relevancy and maintain consumer interest, and they took a path that I think is at some levels smart, but at other levels, it's going to just start to fold in on themselves. This is one of the reasons why when they said they were committed to doing 1 war bond a month, I was like, I think that's a terrible idea. I don't think you can keep up with that cadence, and I think you're going to end up in a situation where this is too much of a good thing. You're going to have the player sort of drowning in war bonds, and sort of feeling almost like this sense of futility. Whether you take a break or whether you come back, it would make the player feel like it's just too much. And I'm going to read some comments now on the video. Always make sure you guys watch that morning kickoff premiere video. It does seem to be allowing chat replay now. Has that always been a thing, or am I insane? I didn't know that they provided chat replays for premieres. I feel like that's a new feature. I feel like we've done premieres for a long time, and I didn't feel like you could go back and watch the chat replay. I might be stupid. That's always a possibility, that I'm just stupid and unaware of stuff on YouTube. I'll be like, oh, this is a new feature. And people are like, that feature's been there for like a year, idiot. And I'm like, oh, whoops. So I don't know. I didn't think you could commonly see the chat replays. So when you show up for those premieres, you can be talking in the chat. The chat replay's there when people watch it, but you can also leave a comment. And then sometimes I end up reading those comments on the live stream. So I already replied to a bunch of people, but John Always is on here. He says, I popped back into the game the other night. I had put about 150 hours into the game after it launched, and running level 7s with a buddy and randos fairly quickly was my regular play session. On my return, I solo queued to level 3 to relearn the mechanics and got destroyed multiple times. Lost all incentive to try anything harder. Do you think they made the game harder, or were you out of practice? Were you out of practice, John, or did you feel like they've made the game harder? Ashton Hollow says, it's been a bit since I played the whole game and it feels contradictory. I was sold on power and absurdity and using these absurd weapons to kill hordes of bugs, and I'm being disincentivized to not fight and to just run. Super counter to the identity of the game. I agree with that. I think that's part of the issue, right? Is it just feels counter to the identity of the game. You know? I've seen it on other channels, but I just figured you set it to not have chat replay. They've done it for VODs. I don't think it was on premieres, though. It's always been available on VODs, but you typically had to wait for the past broadcast to process. So people would be like, where's the chat? And I'm like, oh, it has to process. And they'd be like, oh, okay. I don't feel like I've ever seen it on premieres. Again, maybe I just have never gone back and watched a premiere. No, we definitely have, because we've watched premiere trailers during like gaming events, and then I refresh it and the chat goes away. I wonder if it's a feature that maybe is now turned on by default. I don't know. I didn't check a box. I just scheduled it like completely like normal. I didn't change anything in my flow. So if anything, I think that's cool because a lot of you guys have good comments and good things to say during the premiere. So keep doing that. You'll be in that chat replay now. This guy here says, not much has changed since I took a break at the original Disruptor nerf I see. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And see, that was one of the interesting things that came out of this. The CEO indicated that one of the reasons that they are not able to do quick updates and quick responses, and it's like, oh, this is why we're here again. We heard the exact same thing in Destiny. If you guys don't remember this, there was a season, and I can't remember which season it was. It might have been Season of the Drifter or whatever they called it. Was it Season of the Drifter? Wasn't there a season where there was all this stuff that nobody wanted, and they were like, why'd you do this? This is the very thing we've been complaining about. It might have been the season where we had to go up that bridge and fight our way across that bridge, and I forget the name of the activity, but like everybody hated it, and it seemed to be like they weren't listening. And they basically came out and said a lot of this content was in development prior to the feedback, and it's like, we have to ship it anyway. It's like, what are you going to do? Not ship the content? And I remember that being a problem in Destiny with like parallel development. You could have an entire team working on content that sets a trajectory, and everyone's like, we hate this. Why did you do this again? Was it Reckoning? I can't remember the season where that happened, where Bungie basically had to like come out and tell us that, yeah, this content's usually in the pipeline well before you guys tell us that what you don't like. So you can tell us, oh, we hate Season 1, and they're like, oh, thank you for the feedback. And then Season 2 comes out, repeats all the same problems, and they're like, well, Season 2 was already in development. We didn't have a way to change direction, right? Do you remember that? Anyways, that's something that's happening right now with Helldivers. He's like, we can't, our lead times are long, so you guys are going to tell us that you hate something, and we're not going to be able to fix that with our next update. Sometimes the next update's not going to address it at all. If anything, it might reintroduce some of the frustrations. Eugene says, I don't know if they ever sold this game on the idea of being powerful. You're a grunt whose cannon fodder dropped on impossible situation struggle is the intention. I always felt like the struggle was more comedic than real, though, Eugene. Like, you drop in, you know, they sell you on the chaos of, like, blowing your friends up, and you gotta be careful, you know, stuff's gonna get blown up. I don't necessarily think... I might agree with you to a certain extent, Eugene, that they didn't sell me on power fantasy, but they definitely sold me on chaos and fun. They didn't sell me a milsim. This idea that, like, the CEO's throwing around milsim, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I never, ever, ever got the impression that this game was taking itself that seriously. I don't think I ever thought, oh yeah, this game's meant to be pretty serious. You know, pretty serious, you know, hybrid of milsim and other games. It was like, no, it's a goofy, chaotic game where you blow up aliens and sometimes your buddies. Like, that doesn't feel like a game where you should be fine-tuning anything. Like, fine-tuning. I don't understand. The explosions are enormous, and you can... I literally tweeted a video once. It was somebody dying from a big bug hitting them. Do you remember that? The bug died, and the body of the bug flew forward and killed the player. Like, that's the kind of game you're playing, where the very things you're killing can become, you know, shrapnel that'll fly and throw you to the ground, kill you, crush you, or whatever. It isn't Space Tarkov. Exactly, Rob. Exactly. I agree. They weren't necessarily selling me space fantasy where I'm supposed to be RoboCop walking around planets with, you know, with little threats to my life. Yes, you can die very easily in this game, but I also felt like you were giving me a lot of chaos and power in the process. Dying is the new meta to get ammo. Oh, is that like more effective? And that's not realistic. My brain... I'm sorry. My main issue is the flamethrower animation is ugly and immersion breaking. Oh, I've not even seen that. I remember that clip of the Bile Titan. Yes. I basically said this is why people love, you know, Helldivers. This is why. Let me see if I can find the tweet. I mean, it was basically, I think the tweet did very well because I think people agreed with me. I was like, this is why people love Helldivers. Let's see. I think I used the word, let's see, Reforge Gaming. I'm going to use the word why and Helldivers in my search. Here we go. Let me see. Let me just go to media. See if we can't find it. Let's see here. And I'm not seeing it. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I can't remember. Maybe one of you guys can find it. Maybe I'll just take out the word why and we'll just see anytime I talked about Helldivers. Because to me, that's what encapsulated the game. That's what made me think. I think I said moments. I think I said moments like this is why people like Helldivers. I think that's what I said. And this might be the clip here. No, that's not it. No, that's not it either. Now I'm getting tweets that aren't even mine. I'm getting tweets that aren't even mine. In any case, I thought that clip really encapsulated what people love and why people are going to keep coming back and why people are going to feel this sense of like, if you're going to play this game, this is the kind of chaos, this is the kind of insanity that's going to happen. That doesn't feel like a game where you're like, hey, that gun's a little too strong, we got to tone that down. Now, I responded to somebody this morning, and I said, listen, because he basically said, you know, that weapon needed to be nerfed, or whatever the case is. Like, you know, and there are certainly going to be times where a weapon has to be addressed, okay? But this is why I think you give yourself a context to where it's okay that it's happening. You have to create a context where it's like, no, it's okay that that's happening. It's not like the end of the world. You're not destroying someone's build. You're not destroying someone's favorite weapon. Proudly Toxic says, to be fair, in Helldivers 1, the meta was running away. You couldn't stand your ground and fight. And in high caliber difficulties, the meta was killing patrols before they could call any backup. That just isn't as fun as release day Helldivers 2, though. Yes, yeah, I would say that Helldivers 2 at release was very fun and very chaotic, and I actually felt like we were pretty strong. People in chat keep pointing out that on the back of the PS5 box, it says overpowered weapons. Wait, on the back of like the PS5 Helldivers jewel case? Are you serious? Is that what you... Helldivers 2 jewel case. Let's see if we can't get a picture here on Google image search here. So you're telling me the back of the box literally says overpowered weapons? Enlist in the Galactic Peacekeepers and dive into a community-driven galactic war against alien foes. Bring your squad together, plan your mission, pick your loadout, and take on increasingly challenging missions to protect Super Earth. Become a hero, become legend, become a Helldiver. I don't know what you're... Oh, right here. Spread democracy with overpowered weapons. Yes. Yes, it's right here. It's right here. So there's three boxes. There's this box over here where you see my mouse circling. It says spread democracy with overpowered weapons. Work as a team to overcome impossible odds. Fight for freedom across the galaxy. Do you understand that the left box and the center box they basically create the hyperbole that I've been talking about? It's insurmountable odds. It's you and a couple of buddies against gigantic aliens that don't seemingly stop coming. And you have overpowered weapons. You have very strong weaponry in order to fight. That's that right there. Don't tell me this nonsense about how, oh, it's supposed to be a mil sim. We're not supposed to be that strong. We're not supposed to be overpowered. No, you literally put it on the dadgum jewel case. You sold a game that was supposed to be hyperbolic. And listen, I think most of what they're doing is just they're finding their way. I don't think they're trying to be malicious. I don't think they're like being, unkind or inept. I think they're genuinely trying to figure this thing out. And I tried to offer that solution in my previous video. I was like, listen, you can literally create lore and game mechanics to justify what the box says, overpowered weapons. Here are experimental weapons, right? And then for a month or so, they're really crazy and strong, maybe even dangerous, like the unsafe mode on the railgun. And then the next time you do an update with the research and development, I called it the R&D-FD, because let's be crazy and stupid and exaggerated. It's Helldivers, right? Research and development for democracy. Welcome to the R&D-FD. And then you would say, hey, those are no longer experimental weapons. Thank you. We gathered a lot of great, valuable information to help us kill bugs and bots better. And then they would have a new round of experimental weapons for you. Now, I know people feel like that would just create, like, if you've ever watched soccer. So my kids are older now, and I'm coaching their soccer teams. So I'm having to get more educated on, like, how to coach soccer at these age groups. Because when they're younger, especially when they're very young, like the 4-year-olds, they are sometimes the most fun to watch because it's just this little mass of bodies going wherever the ball goes. And certainly that could happen in Helldivers with my idea. Everybody kind of clusters around the experimental weapons, and that's all anybody ever uses. And you would probably be correct, but you could balance things out with this. You could have that, but then you could have environments where the experimental weapons were less effective, right? So you would still have to fall back on certain weapons and builds and certain things that are just at a ground level, good, strong, and enjoyable weapons. Do you want to know what this does? And I mean, I literally just thought of this now. If you take my idea and you rhythmically and regularly insert experimental, crazy, like everything's really strong that's related to fire, right? That's what they would have done this time around. They would have been like, hey, freedom's flame is the war bond. We're going to experiment with flame weapons. So all the flame weapons would be really, really strong. Do you know what that does for the rest of the weapon pool? It gives you a ton of headroom. It gives you a ton of headroom, because now if you buff any of the stuff down here that's not experimental and maybe stuff that just needs to be brought up or made better, look how much headroom you have. So it's like, hey, those aren't busted or insane or ruining the game or too strong or ruining the meta or trivializing the content. No, you've given yourself all this headroom, so it's not a big deal if you make some of the more base level weapons strong or you increase their this or increase their that. Like, I don't get it. It's like, that man, what an idea that is. It gives you so much flexibility. A $10 super chat from Sheriff Bruce Lee. Congrats on hitting 40,000 for the Emperor. That's right, all you Warhammer fans, we hit 40,000 subscribers. Let's celebrate. Let's celebrate with some likes. Smash the like button on this video. Join this community right now. Click the join button, and if you become a member, make sure and pick Member Plus. We're going for a big milestone of Member Plus and above. Thank you to everybody who's already done that. You're coaching football. Nice. Make the training fun, and ideally give them a ball each. I've watched some really helpful videos on how to do it. Yeah, on how to coach this age group, because a lot of people waste time in this age group with a lot of speeches and a lot of like unhelpful drills. So I'm really benefiting from other coaches on YouTube. I'm like so grateful. I'm like, I'm a little out of my depth, and if I wouldn't have volunteered, you don't know who's going to volunteer. It's like, I'd rather coach than, have somebody that might not be good at coaching coach, because it's like, you might not know enough, but you can still be nice and foster fun and not like yell at the kids. So I was like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do the research. I'll watch videos. I'll figure it out. Make sure everybody has a good time. Super Earth is like Stalin sending troops without ammo or weapons to the meat grinder. Space Marine 2 is going to be a juicer. Yeah, Space Marine 2 is looking very good. Wired Rope with the 5 gifted members. Man, what a great thing to do. Let's get people in the community. Let's grow this community. Whenever you guys gift members like that, you're helping more people get in and try out the content. And if you guys like that members content, man, if you're like, hey, I can afford my own membership, pick up your membership. The $6 one, it pulls you out of the gifted pool, and you're making room for somebody else. You're basically giving up your seat. It's as good as gifting a member to somebody. So thank you to everybody that's done that. There's a lot of you that have upgraded and jumped out of that gifted pool. There are people who just simply can't afford it, and you're making room for them. Helldivers 2, not powerful. Struggle through democracy. Congrats on 40K. Space Marine 2 launching in 22 days. Coincidence? I think not. That's how I planned it. That's how I planned it. As somebody who's not really played Warhammer games, I certainly made sure that happened because I'm just kidding. I'm very excited about Space Marine 2. My biggest concern has just been optimization on consoles specifically. People are claiming on Reddit that this is how Arrowhead has worked in the past. As for anyone surprised by the nerfs, don't be. This is how Arrowhead operates. All right, well let's check out this. Let's check out this Reddit. Let's check out this Reddit post. I'm interested. I'm interested, guys. If you've got feedback, if you want to let me know what you think about this, one of the best ways to do that is to subscribe to the channel so you can talk in chat. Also, don't forget to leave comments on the video. The video this morning is off to a fantastic start. Thank you to everybody who believes in this format, and you're jumping on that video at the beginning of the day. You're hitting like, you're leaving a comment. Man, you guys are giving us just such a great show of support, and it's so great to see the work we're putting into uploads. I am just a newbie to upload content. I've been a live streamer for almost a decade, so I'm trying to do better with the uploads and structure them in a way that's enjoyable for you, my editor, producer, strategist, 8-hat wearing partner. He, is even getting, I think, even better at the uploads because he's done editing for a while. I'm getting new to the entire idea of uploads. So the support you guys have shown is great, and it really encourages us to keep making the videos even better. Lancelot with 15 months and a VIP membership says the first 40K is the hardest. Congrats to you. Love this community. Appreciate the space that you create. Keep up the great work. To anyone else, blow the like button up, he says. And he says also upgrade to Plus. Lancelot's calling on you guys to upgrade to Member Plus, so thank you, everybody who has done that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this. I want to look at this post here on Reddit. Let's see what people are saying here. And I've got my capture all wrong because we did a Friday night stream with Madam. There we go. Put me in my little fancy circle. For anybody surprised by the nerfs, don't be. This is how Arrowhead operates. So this has been posted, on the Helldivers subreddit, and they say they will continue to arbitrarily make the game harder, more frustrating, and then act surprised when the game dies. They've pulled this kind of thing ever since Magicka. Okay, if you're familiar with that. Do you think moderator bullying players about the railgun nerf existed in a vacuum and that he got in trouble for doing it? No, Arrowhead have been around. They have been known to celebrate community outcry, and that mod was demoted for saying the quiet part out loud. Well, here's the thing. You guys can weigh in about whether or not that's an accurate depiction of the company and an accurate depiction of the company's history. I, for one, I don't see evidence of that right now, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I've not been hanging out in their Discord. I'm not constantly on Twitter seeing what they're saying. I'm usually hanging out with you guys or, looking into gaming news and trying to make videos and trying to cover the industry at large. So I'm not saying that there is not evidence to support those claims. I just simply haven't seen evidence of that. So, you guys can feel free to chime in on the accuracy of that subreddit. That Reddit thread, because that feels a little, let me make an example. So I covered Destiny for a very long time and recently have made some videos about Bungie and Destiny. And one of the things that I have noticed is that the longer people play a game and the longer people are in proximity with a game developer, the more they can develop what I would call the us versus them mentality. They essentially believe that the developer is toxic, terrible, and awful, and that they are the righteous protector of, the game. And so they take offense at everything that the developer does, says, or puts out, and they think they know better. Now, sometimes they're correct. I think sometimes, yes, developers lose their way, and the community, sadly, is, a better, a better petri dish of ideas than sometimes the developer themselves. But I think sometimes that can really shade what people think about a dev and a studio and a game. It can become this, it's just everything's that shade of color. Everything they do is they're the enemy and they're ruining the game and they like to make fun of us and this, that, and the third. That guy just said the quiet part out loud. Well, if he just said the quiet part out loud, I don't think they would have demoted him. right? Oh, you let the truth out. We're going to demote you. I don't think so. I'm not saying that there isn't an element of truth to that thread on Reddit. I'm saying I don't ever think situations are that simplistic. It's never a Disney movie where there's the evil witch and then there's the pure and holy princess. It's never that pure. It's never that clean. It's usually somewhere in the middle. Has the developer made mistakes? Yes. Have they handled the situation perfectly? No, not at all. But are they your enemy, and are they actively trying to hurt the game and make you angry? I really don't think so. I really don't think so. I think every developer can trip on their own 2 feet when they start huffing on hubris. When they start thinking that they know best and that the community's stupid and that, they're going to do what they're going to do, they can certainly start huffing on hubris and trip themselves up. I mean, I have said numerous times that what is happening to Bungie is literally hubris coming home to roost. They believed that they were untouchable and they could do whatever they wanted and plan whatever they wanted and they could treat people however they wanted, and it's all coming back to bite them. And is that happening with Helldivers? Has Arrowhead developed, very poor inter-office or inter-business communications and viewpoints that has insulated them from actually, internalizing good feedback and then putting out updates, and now they're just kind of scapegoating their lead time? Like, oh, well, our lead times are long. Is it that your lead times are long, or do you not like taking the feedback from the community? Is there a history of them being antagonistic to the community and defending changes? Now, I am seeing a screenshot here that Georgiani has reported in the Discord today, a couple of hours ago. We dropped patch notes for a hotfix. We'll be posting a message a bit later today on where we're at with the development, and we'll give a bit more color on what's next. I think their best course of action right now, I really do. I think their best course of action right now would just be honesty and transparency and charting some type of a path forward. I don't think the game's in any danger, by the way. I don't think the sky is falling and like game is dead. I'm not trying to overstate that, but I think if they want to put things on a better trajectory, they want a healthier relationship with the community, and they want a healthier response when they push out updates that they've worked really hard on, I think that's what they need to do. Apologizing and then turning right back around to do it again is the reason why I quit. My video today, titled Nerfs Have Led to Treason, that's basically what I said at the beginning. I said it's a tale as old as time. A developer does something that makes a community angry. The community says, hey, don't do that. And they say, oh, we're sorry. And then they do it again. I was like, because time is a flat circle. It all happens over again, right? Now, one of the comments here on the video, this commonly comes up. He says, KG Ulba or K Gulba says, who nerfs the PvE game? Despite all the bugs at the beginning and hard to connect to actually play, I had the most fun for the first 2 months. On top of this, I convinced a couple of my mates to play along, and it was always full, always enjoyable, and everyone had their own role. Now, after all of the nerfs, the Sony controversy with the PSN logging on Steam, there is nothing to come back to. And what a shame, as we consider this game one of the best co-op experiences we ever experienced. They can certainly turn it around. I think they can turn it around. I think they have the core pieces and parts to build upon to get this game into a better position. I truly believe that. I do. I think reversing the flame nerfs would be a good gesture. I would go further than that. I would say, hey, you know what? Our bad. We misfired here. What we're going to do is we're going to give you guys, a month of chaos. We've buffed. We're not just going to reverse nerfs on flame. We're just going to buff all the flames. Just go have fun. Have a ball. I think that's the starting position. Is not just a oops-a-daisy, can we hit the undo button? Can we hit Control Z? It's no, can you show us that you're willing to just just throw some craziness in the game? Revert every nerf. I remember a time where Destiny owned some of their mistakes, and they had an update called the Go Fast update. I believe that's what it was called. And they really wanted to increase the speed of the game because it was one of the more primary complaints that we were very, very slow and abilities weren't strong enough. They did the Go Fast update. And I could certainly see Helldivers doing a Go Boom update. you know, hey, you guys want to go boom? We're going to do a go boom update. Everything's boom. Like, everything's going to be strong and powerful and crazy and right. And we're going to do this for a time and gather some intel and gather some data. And we're going to try and figure out a way to consistently give you guys power without, number one, trivializing the content, breaking the game, or making it, you know, unstable, right? You don't want the game crashing and things like that. Something to that nature of saying, listen, we acknowledge maybe we're running in the wrong direction here. You know, I remember I've given you guys this as an analogy before. I don't know what I was listening to when I heard this. It might have been, I forget what I was listening to. No, I was reading a book. And it was talking about, you know, setting a bad trajectory and what that can lead to. And basically what the guy said is, when he was traveling, he would go over into different parts of Africa, and there was a buddy of his that would deliver medical supplies, and they would be flying, and sometimes his buddy was the pilot, sometimes he would let him fly the plane, and he would tell him, like, here's our heading, you know, here's what our altitude should be, all of that, okay? And there were a handful of times that their trajectory was off by, like, a degree. And he said he would get very, very stern with him. And he explained to him, he's like, if you set our trajectory off by just a degree, we're going to end up in the wrong place. We could get shot down. We could go somewhere where we're not allowed to fly. And that's very dangerous in some of those countries and some of those locations, because you just don't know. You don't know where you might encounter fear and opposition, and all you're trying to do is deliver medical supplies. And I think that's a very, very great picture of what can happen with a game like this if you set the wrong trajectory. What Arrowhead has to consider is the things you're doing now. The things we're doing now, where does that take the game in a year? You have to chart that course out. Because if you're like, oh, let's just go this direction, let's just get some nerfs in place, let's really try to fine-tune and balance the game, you can kind of pull the game off course, and in a year, you're going to end up in no man's land where the only people playing are like super serious, super balanced, milsim-minded people that are like, you know, wearing a sweatband. And it's like, but that's not, I don't think that's good for your game. I don't think that's good for longevity and health. You know? So I think they need to consider the trajectory of the decisions they're making right now and what that leads to in a year. The very, very, I think, present, the clear and present danger, for those of you that know those movies, right? The clear and present danger right now is that they just keep reacting and they're going to be lost in a year. They're going to be lost. It's like in a year, you don't even know where you're going to end up because you're not considering the ramifications of what you're doing right now. You're simply reacting. So my advice to them would be, you need to just stop reacting. Just absolutely stop reacting and just pump all the brakes. Stop everything and consider, where do you want this game to be in a year? And how do you get from point A to point B? And how do you then incorporate, you know, player feedback into that process? Right? That would be sort of my feedback to them. Is right now, I think ownership's important. I think transparency is important. But I think what is not important right now is just immediately reacting, which we were just sort of advocating for, like walk back the nerfs, buff some things, do a gesture of goodwill. I think if you do that, you have to couch that in, hey, we're going to do something temporary for fun here, which that honestly might be a bad idea now that I think about it, because you could set a bad expectation of, well, yeah, they let us have fun for a month, but then, you know, it obviously can't stay like that for forever. You can't just leave everything super powerful. You could end up with, you know, a pretty bad scenario as well. Why is, so Juicehead saying something here about Tom Warren. I'm a big fan of Tom Warren's reporting, but this feels like a miss to me. Getting invited to a closed play test to just leak everything because you technically didn't sign any NDAs is just not a very cool thing to do. I don't think I agree with Juicehead. I got one of those random invites to that game. If you're just sending out random invites to your game and you don't have anybody sign NDAs, you can't get mad at anybody showing the footage and reporting on it. They were just... I got an invite to that game. Deadlock, the thing that Valve is doing. Yeah, I got a random invite to that game. Now, I didn't do anything with it. I've been too busy to boot it up and try it and try it out. But yeah, I don't I don't agree with him. There were no NDAs signed. They just sent out a bunch of invites randomly to people. What did they think was going to happen? That everybody was going to play nice? Of course, the people are going to post videos. You know, thousands of people are playing that game right now and didn't sign any kind of formal agreement. They just got an invite. Omar says, I actually have a love-hate with Milsim. Sometimes you have amazing moments. Other times it's just running for 30 minutes to get one-tapped by a sniper or artillery shell. For sure. For sure. And Noble says, if you want Milsim PvE, go play Tarkov PvE or something built for it. And I think that's fundamentally why... The real worry that I have is that they lose sight of why they were so popular. They're going to lose sight of why they were so popular. We've said this before. Zubair said this. Helldivers 2 was a double cheeseburger. It was just a greasy double cheeseburger. And you got to just say, yeah, we're a greasy double cheeseburger, and that's okay. Keep being that. Keep being that. Just be the... You know, be the game that just embraces chaos and is fun and is silly. Like, the reason the game was so popular is it was so not what all these other games are. It didn't feel like some hyper sweaty PvP game. It didn't feel toxic. It was just mindless fun. And you should be doing everything you can to, you know, to serve that aim. And to serve that identity. That would be my advice. It's like you guys are... I genuinely feel like they're losing that sense of like what made this game, you know, so great. Guys, if chat is acting up for you, we have an extremely strong turnout today, and thank you so much. If you're having an issue with chat, something I do to jar its memory, like if you're not able to like type or anything, I toggle it from top chat to live chat, and that tends to fix it. And now chat's moving again. Okay, I thought maybe YouTube was having an issue. They went down from 200,000 players to 50K. Yeah, but I think in general, their player numbers are not the concern. This is where I think people don't understand why I reference the player numbers, and I need to explain why I reference their player numbers. You will notice in my video this morning, I didn't reference the player numbers and say, yeah, the game is failing, you've lost all your players. I referenced the player numbers to say, this is exactly what I was worried would happen, is that people would come back and then they would immediately leave because you haven't rectified the problems. You haven't rectified the core fundamental issues. You have simply furthered them. And so I don't use the player numbers to indicate that the game is, you know, dead or dying. I use the player numbers to indicate as a barometer of, did you do the right thing? Did you make the right call? And I think it's clear when you look at the Steam charts, they did not make the right call. They got a larger turnout the day they pushed out a patch. More people booted up the game for that than booted up the game when the new war bond hit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's an issue. Like, I think that's what I'm not. A lot of these you know, headline hunters will make a headline. Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its community. No, that simply isn't true. You don't have access to MAU and DAU or WAU. You don't have monthly, weekly, or daily active users. You have no idea what the unique logins for Helldivers 2 is on a given month. All you know is what the player peaks are. You can look at the player peaks and say that a lot of people have stopped playing. You can look at the Circana reports that Helldivers 2 dropped from the #1 Steam game, even above CSGO, down to like 5th and 6th place. And you could argue that, yes, less people are logging in every month. That's a fair thing to say, but you can't say they've lost 90% of their player base, because that's an unfounded statement. That's mathematically defunct, because you're not actually saying that. You're saying that their player peaks have dropped by 90%. It's not that 90% of their player base have stopped playing. Do you see the difference? I know that, you know, when you're writing blogs and you're just trying to get clicks, it's difficult to see the difference, but there's a significant difference. So I don't cite the player base numbers to be like, oh, the game's in trouble, the game's dying. I cite the player base numbers to say it is crystal clear what people want. They were like, oh, there's a patch. They made some changes to the weapons, and they all came pouring back. You have like a 30 to 40,000 player bump on the peak from the previous day, and then guess what? It comes back down. Why? Because at a foundational level, people aren't like, I really need new content and new war bonds. They're like, no, I want the weapons to feel good. I want buffs. And you gave them nerfs, so they left. They basically were like, yep, okay, I'm good. And I argue that the opposite would happen. I have argued that if you put in something like I have advocated, which is a research and development NPC or a computer station that is at a rhythmic level with the war bonds or the seasons or whatever, creating experimental versions of existing weapons and stratagems to make them really crazy, strong, chaotic, and fun, even a little bit dangerous, like the unsafe mode on the railgun, I believe that if you did that, you would create that infection point that you had when the game first came out. It would feel that magic again. It would feel fun and chaotic again, and your numbers would steadily go up and find new heights. I don't think they would get back up to the heights that they previously had, but I do think they would see that steady increase. I think you would see a better result. You wouldn't see what you're seeing now, which is, you know, a certain percentage came back and then the numbers immediately went back down again. Like, I think you can see what the priority of the player base is. You can see it. You can see the way they reacted. They were more interested in a patch and an update than a new war bond. And I think that is a very, very loud and clear message. Like, you've got your blueprint. You just need to figure out a way to do it that has elasticity and longevity. Because you can't just keep buffing into eternity. I think that's another fool's errand. I think a lot of people get that one wrong as well. Well, just buff. Well, and then what? I mean, what are you going to do in a month? You're just going to buff and buff and buff and buff, and then eventually you're killing everything with one bullet? That's not. You can't buff forever. That's another that's another unhealthy trajectory for the game as well. An NDA is an NDA. A gentleman's agreement or whatever is not an NDA. Wild to see consumers rush to defend a corporation that knows quite the difference between the two. Yeah, if you think that Valve expected this to not happen, I mean this. I think you're ignorant. Valve knew what they were doing. Valve understands the power of virality, and what they're doing is they're giving people invites to a game, knowing that people are going to be like, haha, we're in the secret club, we're going to leak the footage, and that's going to make it more talked about than if they did a bunch of NDAs and previews and embargoes. They're leveraging virality and being like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. Why the frick would a press outlet not do that when Johnny with a YouTube channel and a Twitter account's going to do it anyway? Do you see what I'm saying? If there's no NDA signed, thousands of people have been sent invites and are playing the game. Do you really think if, like, Tom Warren from The Verge didn't report on it, that it wouldn't have happened? Like, what are we even saying? Let's read a couple more comments on my video where I said nerfs led to treason. Let's see. I'm scrolling down. I want to go to the people that have their comments have been on there the longest, right? Reckless Gambit says, I never really expected to play this game indefinitely. I agree that the nerfs in the communication can kill a live service, but I never thought the game had the legs to maintain a live service level of commitment. It's a fun time, but it can't be a main game. I actually disagree. The planets, enemies, and content is very flexible. I actually think that they have the pieces and the parts for a game that can go the distance. I don't agree with you, Reckless Gambit. That's a long time member. Yeah, I don't agree. I actually think they have what it takes. I do. You introduce brand new enemies, or you introduce brand new planets, or brand new mechanics, or crazy things, and you use the, you know, the ministry and the videos, and you got a lot of YouTubers that are continually talking about the game and the updates and everything else. Yeah, I think this game has what it takes. Now, I don't think it's going to be like a #1 live service game in the world, but it certainly is still holding its own. It really is holding its own if you think about it. The game's been out for 6 months, and it's still one of the top 10, you know, played games on Steam. That's an achievement for a studio of that size. Then they don't have it. If they have to add it, no endgame. Well, I don't have any reason to think this, but it's a gut instinct. So they've not said anything. They've not done anything. They've not put out anything. But here's something that I think might be going on. This is kind of a gut instinct, gut level feeling that I have. I think they have halted a lot of their plans to add new enemies, you know, new planets and new threats, like the cyborgs and the Illuminate. I think all of that has been put on hold, because I think they probably are wanting to save that for something bigger, like a bigger moment, a bigger thing, like maybe at the annual, you know, hey, it's been the game's been out for a year, maybe they've got something planned. They could also have something very big planned for Gamescom, Tokyo Game Show, or the Game Awards. You know, it definitely feels like they were heading toward adding enemies. They were heavily hinting. They were heavily hinting that it was coming and that certain things were about to happen, and then nothing did. And that tells me that somewhere along the line, somebody said, no, put all that on hold. We've got bigger fish to fry. Personally, that's just my gut feeling on it. My gut instinct says that somewhere internally they said, no, we're putting all those things on hold. We're gonna wait. And I think that was probably the right call. Have you seen Randy Pitchford's online meltdown following the Borderlands movie? Yeah, I watched a couple videos today kind of tracking through it because I didn't want to go read his timeline. But I saw some people kind of like wading through the waters, and he was blocking people and everything else. Yeah, I think he should have just heavily leaned into the movie's bad, and you should go see it because it's bad. Like, I think they had an opportunity to lean into the fact that it's one of the worst movies ever, instead of trying to be like going after everybody who criticized him, like, well, did you actually watch it? It's like, this guy says, back to Deep Rock Galactic. Obviously the concern is that, he's like, oh, I'm not going to lose any money on this. The movie studio is the one. It's like, it's still damaging to your property. You should be angry. You shouldn't be going after the fans. You should be angry that your property was mistreated by a director who seemingly didn't want to make a Borderlands movie. Hey, somebody ordered some coffee. Thank you so much, Chris, for ordering a bag of dark roast. Guys, we do have our own coffee that we sell, and we are continuing to do that for you. If you guys use the coffee command, we have a light roast and a dark roast. If you're a coffee drinker and you've never tried coffee with balanced acidity, you should give our coffee a try. They come in these nice big resealable bags, and with the dark roast and the light roast available in a bundle right now. That is the cheapest that it's ever been. Let me do a reply all. Yes, and finishing chapter 7 this week. The part that really sucks is that seeing a game that did live service right as far as the microtransactions goes shoot itself in the foot with bad management of the gameplay loop post-release. I don't want to say that they've necessarily shot themselves in the foot with the gameplay loop. I don't think that's quite what it is. It feels more like there's a lack of experience that I think is hurting them. But let's be fair here. They're not the first game to struggle with this. They're not the first game to struggle with this. Like dealing with balance issues. The reason I'm able to say that balance is a fool's errand and that it always ends up going in this direction where, something is strong and then everything else gets nerfed and then this is strong and then that gets nerfed and blah, blah, blah. They're not the first company to struggle with this. So it's hard to act like it's unique to them. Plenty of companies deal with this. You sell your coffee cups in a Keurig. We do not. It is pre-ground coffee, and we have a link to reusable K-Cups. They're on Amazon. You can get reusable K-Cups, and that is cheaper for you, if whether or not you care. It is better for the environment, right? I'm not going to go out and, and hug a tree, but, it is better for the environment, and it ends up saving you money. So there's a link in chat for reusable K-Cups. There's also a link below to Amazon with my affiliate link. If you're ever buying anything from Amazon, you can use that affiliate link, and those K-Cups have been set up in that way. So that does help me out, and it does help you out. And then you can try out my coffee and see if you like it. Again, low acidity or balanced acidity coffee is something you should definitely try. And if you've never tried it before, you should definitely give my coffee a try. This guy says, took the Cringe Divers months to notice peak brain rot. Really? Spread the word. Yep, people are saying, let Super Earth fall. Yeah, that's what people are saying. They're saying, let it go. Like, I'm getting a lot of comments on the video now saying, like, hey, people are saying that... Smarter, congrats, your game has been turned to crap. This guy, there are people like losing their minds in my comments. Some people are a little too angry about this. This guy's like, I hope you don't even get your refund. It's like, oh my gosh, who are you talking to? This guy says they've ruined it. If don't think it can be saved now. Can definitely be saved. Can definitely be saved. I don't think the game is beyond being saved. I don't think so. Like, there are games that have come from far worse. There are games that have come from far worse. I don't think that they're beyond hope or anything like that. Again, I think their best course of action right now is to stop reacting, have open and honest and transparent conversations with the community. That I think is the best course forward. Yes. Watch Gamescom opening night live for a new look at Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on Tuesday, August the 20th. There we go. Gamescom is almost upon us. They need to nerf the hunters. Still horrible. Zuber says, I'm joining the bots. The Illuminate invading Super Earth would be a cool event. I put 100 hours in at launch and noped out the second they nerfed everything, says Donnie. Lost all my faith and I'm done. Yeah, I think a lot of people have taken that attitude today, Donnie. They're just like, yeah, I'm just done. And I think you would probably come back if they did, even an inkling of some of the things I've, suggested. Not in today's video. In today's video, nerfs have led to treason. I slightly referenced my experimental weapons idea. This guy leaves a comment, double pump driver, and he says, all of their excuses are BS. They are making the same mistakes all game companies make. Someone gets butthurt because their gun isn't being used, so instead of buffing it slightly, they nerf everything else and expect you to immediately switch over and bow down. These companies shouldn't be able to survive doing this. That is a bit extreme, but I also think it is harmful to push so hard for balance. Like, I don't think you're dealing with somebody that, number one, I don't think you're dealing with someone who's like, oh, no one's using my gun. We better nerf the other guns. I don't think that's what's happening. I think that's a juvenile way of viewing it. Like somebody in the office is angry and vindictive that their gun isn't being used. That's not happening. One lowly dev who made a weapon doesn't have the ability to convince the entirety of the company to make changes, right? Ask any dev. They're like, look, when you're that low on the totem pole, you're not shifting the ethos of the game, okay? The other thing you have to consider is you know, oh, they shouldn't be able to survive doing this. You just need to calm the frick down, man. Like, the company doesn't deserve to be, you know, dissolved and fail because they did a change that you don't like. That's ridiculous, you know. Helldivers 2 Media says 3-hour-a-week casual dads play differently and want different things than 30-hour-a-week CR9 10 crowd. And someone says, how would we react or decide if the devs buffed or nerfed enemies depending on the difficulty? No. Listen, the solution to that is so easy. It's staring you right in the face. Yo, what's good, Orphan Twin? Haven't seen you in a while. I like the nerfs. LOL. Also, hi. Hope you're well, dude. I've seen a couple of things on Instagram, but I don't use Instagram that much. It looks like you're, you know, doing some music again, so that's exciting. If you're ever in this neck of the woods, we got to hang out. Listen, the solution is so simple. You don't need to make the enemies harder or the weapons weaker dependent upon the activity. You don't need to do that, okay? There's a handful of things you can do that would ensure the 30-hour-a-week, you know, CR9, CR10 crowd can get what they want. And what you do is you let them do voluntary handicaps that then yield multipliers on rewards. Right? Hey, come run this really difficult content and you can enable weapon handicaps or stratagem handicaps. And the more of them you enable, the more rewards you'll get. What was that in it was in Destiny. It was something that you could do. Was it Nightfalls, where you could set up modifiers and then we always could figure out there was like the best ones to pick that would give you more points that weren't as punishing. Do you remember that? That feels like such a distant dream. It feels like a lifetime ago. I remember you would select the different icons and you would get a certain point multiplier. And we would come up with like the perfect combination. So like it wasn't too painful, but it also yielded really, really good point results. You can do things like that in Helldivers. Don't just be like, oh, hey, you play a lot and you want things to be hard. Well, here you go. And like guns are weaker and enemies are stronger in CR9 or CR10 or whatever. No. You have to make that something player initiated. If you don't have that be player initiated, you're just going to tick people off. They're going to feel like you tipped over too far. See, this is when you put things into the hands of the player. Yeah, the Nightfall card. That's exactly what it was. Yes, custom Nightfalls, the Nightfall cards. That was so cool. I think that's the idea here is you say, listen, we're going to swing too hard and we're probably going to tick people off, but we'll give you guys the ability to turn on different voluntarily opt-in handicaps, and when you do that, you can then get more stuff, better rewards. Now, that does touch on the video I watched this morning where the guy basically said there's like no end game reward, and he compared it to Deep Rock Galactic, and he was like, in Deep Rock Galactic, the more I do and the harder it gets, the better the rewards are, and that just doesn't really happen in Helldivers 2. So that is something else, you know, to potentially consider. And this guy leaves a comment and says, I still love this game, I really do, but we as players need to be heard when change has to happen. I agree with you. Voice that respectfully and calmly, you know, on Twitter and their Discord and forums and stuff, and that's the best course of action to take. Black Lethal Dragon says, reintroduce Helldivers 1 weapons and stratagem upgrade system. If you like a weapon a lot, upgrade it. The more upgrades, the more expensive. I don't think that's a bad idea. I do think some investment tracks and some investment lines in weapons could be good. PGM991 left a comment on today's video. Guys, always make sure and watch the daily upload. You can set it to like a 1.5 to watch it a little bit quicker and then come to the live stream to discuss it. And if you leave a comment, you might get featured in the video. And PGM991 says they're focusing too much on balancing instead of expanding the core gameplay and progression. Yes. Balance has been too much of a focus. I agree with that. It's been way too much of a focus. You've got to you've got to focus on, you know, the fun factor and what made the game so popular in those early weeks. And it certainly wasn't a focus on balance. Nobody played in those early months of Helldivers 2 and they were like, man, you got to come play this game. It's one of the most balanced things I've ever played. We've talked about this before. We've talked about this before. Has anybody ever celebrated a balance patch and been like, they did it? Come and play, man. That game is balanced. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever heard that? Has your buddy or your friends, or have you ever said that? No. You're usually like, yo, you got to come play this, man. This gun's busted right now. This thing's crazy. Oh, it's so strong. It's so fun. Nobody clamors to a game because it's balanced. Unless it's like a very, very tactical PvP game. You know, Valorant, if someone said, hey, dude, the latest balance patch really fixed some of the issues. But that's an entirely different ethos and mindset. No one's saying, yeah, come play Helldivers 2, dude. Come play Helldivers 2, man. It's balanced, dude. No one's saying that, bro. Nice squid shirt. Oh, you like it? I don't have my other camera on right now. This is from Into the AM, and it's even got like a little, it's kind of like a Dark Souls setting. He's got a little knight down here getting ready to face this giant squid. You know, he's going to save the town. You can use my shirt command or the shirt link below, intotheam.com/Lono, or use code Lono. If they're ever doing sales over there, you can stack my code on top of their sales. They might be doing one right now. I feel like they're doing sales all of the time. I feel like they're doing sales all the time. Right now, they have polos, up to 60% off polos right now, and their polos are very nice. If I dressed like that, I would, you know, I'd buy some. But I'm in t-shirts most of the time. Haltone says, not only are the guns getting weaker, the amount of rare samples needed to progress is getting insurmountable. Instead of balance, why not more mission types, says Eugene Kim. Acts of Eugene, different Eugene, says they would need to create an entire reward structure that isn't the idea of the game. People playing that much don't need mats or medals. They're playing just to play. In Helldivers 1, you could like upgrade weapons and make them stronger and stuff. And I think that could be something like, let's say, for the sake of discussion, that they think I have a good idea. You know, that would be weird, right? For a game developer to think I have good ideas about their game and then implement it. We've never seen that before, except for, you know, 3 to 4 years when I covered Destiny. Anyway, so if they think I have a good idea and some amalgamation of my idea ends up in the game, and there's some research and development computer, and they're doing the experimental weapons and the experimental stratagems, and they're, you know, able to rhythmically introduce power with the understanding that that power will not remain, right? You understand that this is a temporary thing, it's experimental, and that, you know, there'll be other weapons and stratagems rotated through the experimental system. Now, phase 1 could be just that. Create an ability, give yourself a mechanism to rhythmically introduce power while also setting the expectation that it's not going to stay that way. That's what my idea is designed to do. It's a very holistic idea. I've thought about this a lot. I've covered games like this a lot. And so that's how I came up with the idea of you could do this rhythmically so that it sets expectations, and then you're not locked in a room where everything's too strong now. How the frick do we get out of here, right? My solution gets you that exit door every 30 days or every 60 days or whatever. You can like bring everything back down to normal and then do, you know, new experimental things, okay? They're still implementing your ideas that a cursed game? Hey, I mean, great. Anyway, if they were to do that, that would be phase 1, okay? Phase 2 could be, hey, we have now added skill trees to every weapon, and the more you play, you can add little buffs to a weapon. And I mean, they would be very, very minor, like, you know, 3 more bullets in the mag, or, you know, minor things like that. But enough to make it feel like, oh, hey, you know, I'm continuing to progress through the game. I mean, that's what they did in the first game. You could certainly do that. And that means every time you add a batch of new weapons, you've got a whole new batch of skill trees for people to sort of invest their time in if they feel so inclined, you know. Jake says, it was such a shot across the bow. I was busy. I took a while to finally unlock the slugger. I swear it was 24 hours and they nerfed it. Took me right out of the game. That is such a great perspective to continually voice. Found the shirt. Thank y'all. Thank you. If you use my code, man, I appreciate that. I don't get a kickback from Into the AM for you using my code. I periodically do paid spots where I'll like do a little thing, show the shirt and show the website, and I'll use my secondary camera. So I do partner with them, work with them, and do those paid spots. But I don't get a kickback when you use my code. It just saves you money. And it also communicates to them that, hey, like, working with this guy is in your interest. So it does help me. But I am not getting a kickback when you use the code. It is just primarily designed for you to save some money and for them to see, hey, he's promoting our stuff. So thank you for doing that. A great way to support what I do right now. Let's just take a very quick station identification. We've been streaming for about an hour and 15 minutes. If you regularly watch this channel or enjoy this channel, do me a favor, click that like button. Let's set our sights on 300 likes. We have had over 600 viewers for a huge amount of time. A lot of you may have found this channel brand new today. I think we've been sort of placed on maybe your homepage. I am seeing more live streams placed on homepages. So maybe you saw me brand new today and you're like, hey, this is kind of a cool place to hang out. I am a safe for work broadcaster, so a lot of people listen to me Monday through Friday, kind of like their video game radio or video game podcast, and they throw me on in the background of their day. Because I'm safe for work, you don't have to worry about the kind of language that I'm going to be using. You can kind of not worry about, like, if somebody walks through the room or if your kiddos are, you know, within earshot. So do me a favor, smash like, hit subscribe, and if you want to support the channel directly, we do have a weekly goal on the member front, and when we hit that goal, Friday night with my wife turns into a community game night, okay? So you can help us hit that goal by either becoming a member or gifting some members. If you become a member, pick Member Plus, because that gets you into all of the content, but it also means your renewal every month hits this goal. And a 10 bomb comes in from Light Leap, and he rounds us out nicely. He rounds us out nicely to 100 members. I now owe you guys 10 members because I give 5 every 25. So thank you so much, Light Leap, for doing that. So we can constantly be paying it forward. I'm constantly gifting in response to your memberships. And if you upgrade to Member Plus, that supports me directly and it gets you into more content. So thank you so much for those of you that do support directly. If you're like, dude, I cannot afford to do a membership, times are tight, we understand that, and you may get a gifted membership. That's why we do that. I know a lot of folks can't afford it right now, and I'm going to gift right now, and Light Leap just gifted, and that'll give you an opportunity to get into the community, play some Helldivers with the community. Our Discord's very active. Our Discord is very active, and we're doing daily uploads and daily live streams. When you're a member, you start the day with us as well. We start the day with morning coffee. It's sort of a kickoff to the day for members, and then we end the day with Writer's Room. So you get a lot of extra content on the channel as a member. So thank you guys so much. And we just hit 40,000 subscribers, so thank you everybody who made that happen as well. Subscribing is free, and it helps me because it helps you find me every day when I'm doing shows and doing uploads. And thank you to everybody who smashed that like button. Make sure it is saving your likes. YouTube's a little funky with that lately, and like it won't save your like. So I'm having to approve some comments. People are very upset, and they're kind of going at each other. So try to keep it respectful in the chat and in the comments. There's no reason to be attacking people about this. This guy here, Mike, I think he's been in the chat earlier as Vuber or something like that. He's got like a picture of a kid with sunglasses on for his avatar. He says, I have over 800 hours invested in this game. When I dropped in and saw 4 out of 4 on my incinerator, I almost deleted the game. Yeah, Zuber, not Vuber. I'm sorry, Zuber. Zuber's been here hanging out. That is rough. So thank you for going and checking out the video and leaving a comment. Now, somebody here says, good video. The only issue I have is listening to the community. So this is coming from a user named Roar104. They said here, most of which don't come from any previous Arrowhead games or even educating themselves about Arrowhead games might be a fool's errand. The community at large seems to want the game to be a casual co-op horde shooter like EDF or DRG, like Deep Rock Galactic or Earth Defense Force. And that's never what it was going to be. Listening to the community and alienating your fan base from previous games for the sake of the wider audience will burn you in the long run. I actually think the launch of the game proves they can have a broader audience. I do think there's an element of truth with what Roar is saying. I do. If you make a game or a movie for everybody, it ends up being for nobody. I agree with that in principle, but here's the thing. Helldivers 2 struck a chord with the gaming world because it wasn't entangled in all this yet. It was literally just a fun, stupid, mindless game. That's all it was. Now, the minute you start trying to sharpen that down into a more finer point, and you're doing fine-tuning, and you're doing balance passes, and you're doing all these things, I'm here to tell you, you're going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy of, yeah, you made a game for the core audience and everybody else walked away. And I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that that's necessary. Something that Destiny has managed to do, and this is what gave their game staying power. I'm going to tell you what it is in just 1 second here. I'm going to wonder if you guys can guess what I'm going to say. What gave Destiny so much staying power as a live service game over the last 10 years? What allowed them to survive and continue on and to continue to have people coming back and playing? Do you guys remember what it is? I've talked about this before. I've talked about how this is how you win the video game live service lottery, is if you can do this one thing. Do you guys remember what I've said? I'm curious if anybody can remember. Yo, good to see you, Gaming Forte. Can anybody remember? My man Takashi left a lengthy comment on the short intro VOD. Read when you have time, please, but got to say this. I've told you so many times over, even though folks never like being told this. I don't think you told me so. I mean, I've been saying this for a while. It was casual as heck. Kind of consistency, no. Great gameplay, no. No, you guys aren't wrong, but that's not what I've said. Lots of aim assist. No. All right, I'll tell you what it is. I'll remove the mystery. Okay, meat and potatoes. I've talked about meat and potatoes content. Yes. The reason that Destiny has survived and has continued to survive even to this day, and this is why I actually think that they have a bright future. And I argued yesterday that they should focus only on that and they should cancel Marathon. And there are people on both ends of the spectrum there. There are people who are like, yes, you're right, cancel Marathon. And then there are people like, no, you're an idiot. What are you doing? Why would you say this? Okay. The reason that Destiny has survived as long as it has is because it appeals to both casuals and hardcore players simultaneously, which is incredibly difficult to do. They have dungeons and raids and Trials of Osiris and Nightfalls and Grandmaster Nightfalls. That's all there for the hardcore players. And the casual players never set foot. They never set foot in that side of the game. They just don't. But then Destiny somehow managed to capture and to keep a very good-sized casual player base who lived in the public space and who lived in the Strike playlist. And that's all they did. And they would do bounties and they would run public events. They managed to build a game with something I've called before. I've referred to it as spectrum. There was a spectrum of player because there was a spectrum of content. And when you can invest time in a game and you feel as your 10 hours that week was worth it, and I play for 10 hours a day and I still somehow feel that it's worth it, you have won the dadgum live service lottery, because that's a broad spectrum of player that's enjoying your game. Now, how do you do that in a game like Helldivers 2? My man Gaming Forte jumping back in as a member. Thank you, sir. I'll tell you, if you want a spectrum of player, you have to offer a spectrum of content. And the beauty of Helldivers is they're already set up for this. They are already set up for this. You have a spectrum of content already in place. You have a spectrum of difficulty. You have a spectrum of what happens when the difficulty goes up as far as like the number of enemies, size of the enemies, difficulty of the enemies, etc. If you want a spectrum of engagement, create a spectrum of content. And like we were talking about before, where somebody's like, well, oh, what if they decided to nerf or buff enemies and guns dependent upon how hard the content is? No, absolutely not. That is not the solution. That's not the solution. The solution would be to say the hardcore players want a finely tuned mill sim, really tough, really challenging environment. Give them the ability to craft that. Give them the ability to craft that with, as I said, self-inflicted handicaps or modifiers that then yield, better rewards, better scores, or what have you. Right? And then have it, it obviously would just scale down from there. The beauty of Helldivers 2 is, do you guys remember? You guys would give me grief about the fact that, like, I would not play the harder content. Right? I wouldn't play the harder content. I would only play, like levels 4 and 5 or whatever the heck, right? Anyone else lose audio? Man, is YouTube acting up? I lost my train of thought with that question. I lost my train of thought. I forget what I was saying. Helldivers patched incoming. Read it on the Steam page. Didn't do much, but they did acknowledge that a lot of the problems haven't been fixed yet. Okay. Realism isn't rocket devastators endlessly launching rockets. It isn't Bile Titans constantly breaking through the ground. It's about fun. Oh, yeah, you guys would give me grief about running the non-hard content. That's what I was talking about. Yeah, 4 or 5. Thank you, Kevin George. Okay, so you guys would give me grief about doing that. That's the beauty of Helldivers, is that I was playing in an extremely casual way and talking to chat, and I was having a ball. I was having a blast. Now, I've obviously been motivated to not play by these changes because I would prefer to come back and be like, yo, tell me what the meta is, y'all. Let me know. Oh, that gun, and that stratagem, sweet. Can't wait to try that out. And I would gear up, and I would go out, and I would have a ball. Right? Like, that right there is appealing to me as a more casual player, and yet I know there are people up there in like the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s that are, doing that thing of trying to figure it out and trying to time things and trying to play together and treating it more like a mill sim. And I think if you would create a little bit more flexibility up there for those people, this is what I think's happening. And this is always a problem. When you start nerfing and buffing from the top down, that tends to snowball as it travels through the game. Like, it gets worse. Like, it's actually in reverse. I'm sorry. It snowballs in reverse. Like, the people that are running, difficulties 2, 3, 4, and 5, they might not feel those nerfs as pronounced and as significant as the people at the top. But that snowball tends to pick up traction and get bigger. And those nerfs are going to feel more pronounced and more potent when you're playing, 8, 9, and 10 difficulty. So the entire thing ends up being an act of self-sabotage. It's like you're looking at the hardest content and you're ensuring that it's not invalidated, and you're nerfing and you're buffing, so that the game feels balanced, and you don't want things to be too easy, and you don't want people steamrolling through the content. But what you end up doing is you end up creating a snowball effect where the more you go up in difficulty and the higher up you go in the game, the more significant those changes are felt. And therefore, what you're actively doing is making the game less enjoyable for your most dedicated players. Now, the most dedicated players, the defense force, the people in my comments that were yelling at me every time I've made a video on this, and they're yelling at people on Twitter forums and in the YouTube comments about, like, just get good or go play something else. I actually think those people are a threat to your game because they're just the defense force. They're going to defend your game no matter what. They think it's great, or they take some kind of weird ego trip from playing a game that is not PvP. You're not playing against other players. What does Asmongold say? The game is designed to be beaten. Why are you getting an ego about it? Like, getting an ego about beating a PvE game is laughable. It's like it's been designed to be beaten. Right? It's not like you went 1-to-1 against another really, really good player and beat them. Then you could be like, yeah, I'm good, I'm better than them, or I'm the world's greatest player, or I'm the champion, or, you know, I won the tournament. It's, you're beating a game that's been designed to be beaten. A $10 super chat tip from Gaming Forte, my man. Bungie's fortunate they had at the legacy the beginning of the creators of Halo when D1 released. The combination of releasing during a time with no competition and player loyalty helped push Bungie past 10 years. I said that the other day, Forte. I said, listen to me now. If a game were to drop like Destiny now, and they didn't have the prestige of the name of the studio and that trust from loyal players, and they didn't have like a gaming drought to land in, it would die. Destiny 1 didn't survive because it was good. It survived because of player loyalty and the legacy of their name. They wouldn't have been given a chance to save it. There was also nothing else to play. You don't have to get good now because the game is easier. I don't think it's easier. I don't think Helldivers 2 is easier now, is it? I think people are arguing that it's harder because of the nerfs. I love that quote by Asmon. I use it a lot lately. The boss is made to be beaten. Right. Some dude says, that's 100% accurate. I was so mad when Bungie quit Halo and was very ready to support their new game. A lot of that leads to me in my argument with Marathon. I don't think Marathon's going to get that level of support and confidence and longevity. I don't think so. I don't think it has what it takes. Game is easy? Well, I don't think today or in any of my videos I have argued that the game is hard. I've not talked about that. I've talked about fun. And I think those two things are distinctly different. It's not that something is hard and therefore not fun. It's that it was fun and you have lowered the fun. That's what I've continued to try to say. They nerf difficulty on the mid-levels. Yeah, see, now they're in the seesaw of reaction. Oh, well, we nerfed some things, so now we have to make certain difficulties easier. I just think that's a terrible situation to be in. You know? It's always been easy, but the issue is it's inconsistent. Sometimes it occasionally throws some ridiculous curveballs. Well, sure, I remember having that conversation with somebody who played the higher level difficulty, right? Guys, we have almost 700 people here. I'm not quite sure what YouTube is doing. I think maybe this video is being put somewhere on YouTube and is being maybe featured. So if you found me today and you've never watched this content before, man, thank you so much for being here and choosing to spend some time with me. I greatly appreciate it. Be sure to hit subscribe so you can talk on the chat. Hit the like button. Turn on notifications so you don't miss my content. That like button would be really, really helpful right now. We've got this many people. Let's see how far we can take the likes. I really, really do. I appreciate you guys giving us some love right now. And I've been covering Helldivers off and on for quite a bit. Yeah, right now, if you search Helldivers 2, I just searched it incognito. We might be getting a pretty big bump from search results as well. So if you found me on your homepage or through search or suggest, I really do appreciate you trusting the channel. Actually, we're not getting search. We're getting browse. I must be on your homepages. Holy moly. We are very grateful to the people that decide to hang out here. Written Warbond, spelled Warbond, silly little language. Wait, do we have Warbond misspelled in the description? Do we? Or is he referring to something else? We didn't misspell it in the... No, it's not just... I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe closed captions got messed up or something. Yo, what's good, John Levkowski? Would it be appropriate to balance weapons and enemies based on how long you believe a mission should take per difficulty tier? Well, I mean, here's what you don't want to do, right? I found the stream today because you mentioned in the video, so I went looking to see if it was still live. Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. That's kind of what we're going for, is we throw out a video that's easy to consume, 10 to 15 minutes, and if you like the topic and you're like, this guy's an idiot, or I agree with him, man, come to the live stream and tell me. I mean, obviously, we don't want you to come in and insult me. That creates toxic, we want to have a conversation. So I appreciate you doing that. You came up on my homepage. Video was just uploaded, and it said you go live after to talk about it, so I popped in. Hey, that's great. We really are trying to make that just a daily, reliable format. I'm glad that you guys decided to come along and check us out. We talked about Bungie recently, Jedi Survivor. I've talked Xbox. I've talked PlayStation. I talk about pretty much anything going on in the gaming industry, and if you like it, I hope I see you come back on other days, not just on Helldivers days, but I hope I see you on a regular basis. And we're going to do something in just a second that you guys have never seen before. We do a Q&A session just for members, and your question will show up on the screen, and the members will show you how to do it right now. And right now, typically what we do is we let you kind of dictate what we talk about. Now, it does need to be about gaming. I don't want you to ask me about TV shows or politics or or other things, the stock market. But you can ask me about gaming. You can ask me about gaming, and you can use !question. That's the command. Nightbot will grab that command, but you have to type !question and then your question after that. So you just put a space in between. Spectre Dead Gaming with a $10 super chat tip just gives me a little wave, and I wave back. Hello. Thank you for the 5 bomb of members from Siege Master. Guys, this is a great time to become a member or gift members. If you pick up your own membership, pick Member Plus. If you're like, I don't really do memberships on YouTube, that's okay. Maybe one day you'll be convinced to hang out here a little bit more, and that's something that membership gives you, is it gives you more content. We do lots of extra shows and events and things like that for members. So, and we currently, Stone Spire, we're at 497. 497. We're wanting people to upgrade to Member Plus and above. We're wanting that to be 500, and you can do that and help us hit that milestone. So the question and answer time, Q&A time, is designed for members, and you guys can continue to ask me about Helldivers. That's totally fine. Or you could ask me about anything else going on in gaming to get my opinion on it. We appreciate it. Legend says, if you want to call Lono an idiot, take a number and wait your turn. Alapark with 5 gifted members. A little bit of a member train starting here with the gifted members. Thank you so much, Alapark. This is a great time to pull people in to the member pool so they can try out the Q&A. And Sneaky Wolf is going to submit the first question, but it's not really a question, but this is what it looks like. It pops up on the screen, and it says, it's my birthday, y'all. Do you think we can get to 200 members? Love ya. Thank you so much, Sneaky Wolf, for doing that. He wants to see you guys hit 200 members on the weekly goal. Thank you so much for doing that. Bio and mechanical units being differentiated would be a nice thing. With respect to, maybe even, I mean, obviously we know that certain weapons are more effective against certain enemies, but that could be part of the experimentation and the experimental weapons. You could basically be given weapons that are designed to hey, we think these are going to be better against the bots. And somebody ordered some coffee a little bit ago. Thank you so much, Rich, for ordering the best of both worlds. That is very much appreciated. Thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate you so much. And Replaced has tweeted, I have a feeling this is going to be one of those sad delay images. We'll keep it short. Replace is now being released in 2025. Is anybody surprised that Xbox spoke out of turn and said a game was coming when it probably wasn't ready to come? That's awesome. Kingslayer says, did you try Cult of the Lamb update yet? I tried Cult of the Lamb last night with my wife. Co-op is fun, but it's a little rough around the edges because at any point, she can be hijacking what's happening, and I can hijack what's happening. So, if I go up to do something, and then she steps too close to something, she takes over. And, she can hold down X to do this or talk to this person. And so, a lot of the times, she was accidentally taking control, and then all of a sudden, I was in control. And then we would end the mission, and she would be the one that would have to, press the button through the menu instead of me. So it's got some rough edges with respect to just that fluidity of co-op local co-op gameplay where, like, why don't you just make one person drive instead of randomly making her drive? It was really awkward at times. But we had fun. We really had fun. I did, however, forget to build the lumber yard. I got caught up in building the sleeping bags, and all of a sudden we didn't have any wood, and so we like couldn't do anything. And I'm like, what? I was like, we must have missed something. I said, I don't remember this being a pain point, because I have played the game before. I was like, I don't remember this. I don't remember being like this. And so we finally figured it out, and we built the lumber yard, and we ended the night a little bit later than I wanted to stay up because we were trying to figure it out. And I was like, oh, so we kind of got back into the rhythm of it, and it was really, really a fun time. Couple rough edges with the local co-op, but I think that's something they could smooth out. They could smooth that out. So yeah. Muku with a question says, I've been lurking since the Destiny 1 days. I wanted to know if you think a game will ever capture your attention the way Destiny ever did again. I actually don't know. Hey, Magic, you're trying to submit a question. You do need to be a member for Q&A. That is something that we afford to the members only as a nice feature. So you might get a gifted member, or you can opt to pick up a membership. Make sure to pick Member Plus if you guys are going to do your own membership. It kind of differentiates you from the gifted pool of members. That's why you want to pick Member Plus. So... let's put the question back up here. Do I ever think a game will capture my attention the way Destiny did ever again? I've actually got some thoughts on this. I don't know if this will ever turn into like a video or a monologue or something, or like an opinion piece. But I do think that... I really do think the industry is changing. And not like in the doomsday, it's bad and dying and the whole industry sucks. I think those doomsdayers are going to look really silly in a couple of years when none of their predictions come true. And they're going to be like the guy in the street corner, like the end is near. And then a year later, he's like, the end is near. And it's like, so every year you're saying the same thing. So I'm not being doomsday. But I do think the industry's changing. And I think it's changing because... I think player preferences are changing. And the difficulty with this is that this is a moving target that is organic. It's kind of like if you've ever seen like a vine, suddenly it's like growing up the side of a building and like it's wrapped around the gutter and then like it's going in all these different directions. And you can generally kind of predict where that's going to go, but sometimes you just can't. We had a vine that ended up, it somehow got in and behind the screen of our window, and like we had a vine like in the window, in between the window and the screen. So I do think one of the reasons that people have kind of gotten to a point where they're like, I don't want a game that's a chore or a job. I don't want a game that I live in. The irony of that is, I think it's because they've already done it once. And I think if you've done this once before, like let's say you threw your life at EverQuest or World of Warcraft or Destiny, I think when you've done that, I can't prove this, it's just a gut instinct thing that I'm basing off of 10 years of coverage of these types of games. I think if you've given one game everything you got, you are then less likely to ever do it again. That's what I think and believe. And I think what you're seeing is this cascade of ripples throughout the industry of people that are like, dude, I just gave everything I had to World of Warcraft, or I just gave everything I had to EverQuest or Destiny, and I just don't want to do it again. Some of that's burnout and fatigue. Some of that is... It's like a first love scenario, right? Like... It's never, no one can ever, no, it's never like your first love, right? Like right now I've been married for 17 years. And if something suddenly ever like tragically happened and I was suddenly like a widow or something, I don't know if I would ever want to marry again. And if I did, I don't know if it would feel the same. It would feel different. And I don't know if I'd want to go through all the pomp and circumstance of a wedding and, all of that either. Because it's like, well, I've kind of already done that once before and it would feel different, right? That's not the greatest analogy, but I think that can give you like a glimpse into why people are like, this was kind of it for me. I don't know if I want to do that again. through your life at EverQuest, I'll take things that didn't happen for 500. I'm not saying I did that. I was just giving that as an example. I know guys that played EverQuest like a crazy amount because they all stopped playing Quake with me. I know guys that basically threw every waking hour they had at EverQuest. So again, I think, and I don't have any data to back this up. It's just sort of like an observation that I'm making, is that if you've given a ton of time and commitment to Destiny or World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV or whatever the game is, I think you're less likely to do it again. I'm not saying that you won't do it again. I'm saying you're less likely to do it again. Right? I think it just decreases the odds of it happening. Because what you're going to do is you're going to be playing a game and you're going to be reminded of the things that annoyed you from the previous game. You're like, yeah, you can see through the veneer a little bit. You know, the veil's been pierced, right? You know, you're like, yeah, they're doing this because they want me to log back in, and they're doing this because they want me to keep playing, and they're doing this because they want me to spend money. And like, you can kind of see through everything that they're trying to do. It was a joke because it fell into near irrelevancy once WoW dropped. Oh, no, that certainly is true. I remember that, Spice King. I remember my friends immediately switching from EverQuest to World of Warcraft. Sure. And I remember trying EverQuest, and I didn't like it, and I just went back to Diablo 2. It just made me go buy the collector's edition of Diablo 2, and then I had a blast. Takashi, so you listen, I'm not trying to measure this or even argue who said first. Just saying the signs were there at the very start, and back then a lot of good criticism got shut down because Arrowhead gathered such a large amount of street cred. But look for yourself, almost every patch states crash fixes, and I found this almost never to be true. Well, maybe they did fix stuff, games still crash reliably, and this is just one example out of a number of others. Right, I don't know what I'm not saying you were trying to say you said it first, but if anybody's going to come and tell me, like, I told you so, Lono, about Helldivers, it's like, no, you didn't. I've been saying since the very beginning that Nerfs was one of the worst decisions they could make with this game. I've been on their head about it since one of the very first patches. I remember when they did it, I was just like, you can't, you've got to figure out a better way of doing this. I forget what we even called the video. I feel like we covered this before. It was way back. Yeah, we did a Nerfs and buff right here. Nerfs too far. March 7th, right? I did literally a show called Nerfs Too Far. Helldivers 2 Nerfs Too Far on March 7th. So the game had only been out for a month, and I was already commentating on the ramifications of taking that sort of a mentality of hammering things down in order to promote other items. So if you guys have left comments on the video, thank you so much. If you want your question to be featured like this, then you do need to be a member. So consider signing up for a membership, or maybe you'll get a gifted membership, and you can use the question command. I remember you saying, Nerfs are necessary, power creep is an issue, paraphrasing, and I did push back against that, and it was way before the video. I'm not doing this with you. I don't like doing this retread of like what I said, because it's like one specific quote. I don't want to do that with you right now. I don't think that that's enjoyable, because I don't remember why I said it or the context of what I've said it. I'd have to go back and see what we were specifically talking about. And I've continued to say even today and in my recent coverage that yes, sometimes nerfs are necessary. They are. But you've got to create a context to where it doesn't feel like you're ruining the fun. So I've not changed my position, and there's no gotcha here. I didn't say anything differently back then than I'm saying now. Nerfs are sometimes necessary, because if not, you do end up in a power creep issue. I've even said recently that just buffing everything creates the exact same problem, but in reverse. My position hasn't changed. I just have actually come up with what I think is a solution specific to Helldivers. But I'm not going to do this rehash who said it first thing. I don't think that's productive. I've never tried to claim I was the first person to say it. I'm just merely pointing to that I've been consistent about this. I haven't moved in my opinion on how to handle nerfs and buffs. Girl says, just want to update on the long-awaited, highly anticipated 12 minutes gameplay. No. Nitro Fusion says, as the holiday season is one of the best times for games, what AAA titles are you most looking forward to? Right now, I would say I was really looking forward to Star Wars Outlaws, and I'm not as much anymore. And I really hope all my gut instinct about Star Wars Outlaws is wrong. Right? I really do think that the nature of that game is going to end up disappointing me. It's not what I thought it was. A lot of my concerns when we first started seeing gameplay and there was some degradation, I was like, it's going to end up being master of all. I'm sorry. What is it? Jack of all trades, master of none. And to me, I think that's the concern is like, well, the space combat's going to be a waste. So why did you even include it? And, you know, using the speeder to get around is cool, but ultimately kind of pointless. You know, things like that. So outside of Star Wars Outlaws, I would say I am really looking forward to. You did say AAA titles. I was going to say Towerborn because I think Towerborn looks pretty cool. But I will say this. I think that Space Marine 2 looks very promising. My only concern's been performance. I think they maybe went a little bit too ambitious. They canceled their own beta to focus on optimization. So I am concerned that game's going to run pretty poorly on console. TX Goalie with a $5 super chat says, something not mentioned is how I paid for something, enjoyed it, then have it nerfed like something the Eruptor. Right. I tried to highlight that earlier, and then I think I interrupted my train of thought. Somebody said, I worked really hard to get this weapon, and then all of a sudden it gets nerfed. Like, yes, I think that's a significant problem. It's like that makes people not confident in your game, right? It's like... It's that to me makes me not confident. It's like, well, should I buy the next premium war bond? Should I grind the next war bond? You know, if I'm going to do all that and then finally get the thing and then it ends up getting nerfed, it's like you just completely poured acid on player incentivization. You know, hey, come do this thing. Yeah, come buy this thing and grind and get it. Yeah, you got it? Cool, it's nerfed. Like, what? Like, you just absolutely broke player incentivization. It's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I remember when I got the Suros regime in Destiny. It was like, I remember getting that and saying, dude, I just got it, now you're going to nerf it? Similar mindset of you finally grind the war bond, you finally get the weapon, and then they nerf it. It's like everybody else was having fun with it, and now you don't get to. Yeah, I know you weren't trying to pick a bone with me, Takashi, but I feel like sometimes it gets turned into, I said it first, because I'll be like, yeah, I made a video about this, or I said this in the past. All I'm trying to do is establish consistency, right? I don't care who said it first. There are some people recently that will do this now. It's like all of a sudden they show up in the conversation. They're like, I tried to tell you, Lono. And it's like, no, you didn't. I wasn't sitting here with like my ears plugged and my eyes closed and was like, la, 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 I'm not going to listen to you. Yo, nerfs are good. Like, no one tried to tell me anything. I was covering this from the very beginning. I didn't need to be convinced or compelled that this would cause problems. I covered Destiny for half a decade. Like, I know what nerfs are going to do. And I told people, I said, this is going to happen. There are going to be weapons that stand out, and they're going to nerf them. But I've also always said, you have to create a context where you don't feel like you're ruining people's fun. And I don't think that they have successfully done that. All they've done now is basically hammer down anything that stood out. It's like, voom, oh, that's strong, hammer it down. Voom, oh, that's strong, hammer it down. And it's like, that's not going to work either. I think that's the major difficulty with any of these games is everybody thinks you either hammer down what's too strong or you just buff what's not strong enough. And either road is taking you to the same destination. You're going to end up with a bunch of neutered, bland weapons that all feel the same. Nothing stands out. And as I've said a couple of times today, nobody says, come on back, boys. It's balanced. No one's going to do that. They're going to say, dude, the new weapons or this new thing or such and such weapon is crazy strong right now. You got to come play. Right? You got to come play. Because I think I even said back then, you know, consumer anger is not a sign of problems. It's typically a sign of health. And I always said what you have to do is you have to channel that, and you've got to give them something else. You can't just keep nerfing and not replacing. There's got to be a way to give them something in its place. And that's why I came up with the idea of experimental weapons, because it's like you need to create a context where it makes sense why something's really strong and broken, but it doesn't stay that way. Yeah, I knew you weren't necessarily directing it at me, but that's just how it came across. It was like I didn't need convinced about any of this. You and I were probably largely on the same page. You know, I don't think you can ever not nerf ever. Like, I certainly think that's maybe too juvenile of a view of it. Of like, don't nerf anything. It's like, well, I've said it a couple times in my recent coverage. Like, there's going to be times where you just are like, this is broken or this is well outside the bell curve. And instead of being like, oh, we got to bring that back into the bell curve, you have to ask, well, why did everybody clamor for it? Why did everybody cluster around it? And try to channel that instead of it just feeling like you're punishing the players for finding something good. It ends up feeling almost like punitive. It's like, oh, we found something that's good and strong and you took it away. You know? Spice King with a question. What needs to be done to shake up the massive pool of live service games, seeing as the market is growing stale? I don't see evidence that the market is growing stale. I think that's just an observation from doomsdayers that, like, market's growing stale, market's dying. I don't see evidence that it's dying or growing stale. I think the live service games are saturated. So I think what's happening is people are trying to get into the live service environment, and they're not able to get their foot in the door because of Call of Duty, because of, you know, because of Fortnite, because of Apex, because of, there's so many games. Like, I don't think like live service games are growing stale, right? I think there's just really no room for anybody else to stand right now. Like, you'd almost need to have a breakout title. You almost need like a breakout title. You need a game that like, and see, this is why I think a lot of people look at Helldivers and they're like, man, you guys really had a golden ticket here. You really had a golden ticket. You know? And I don't think they've like screwed the pooch or like, you know, or like the game, you know, the game is beyond, repair or anything like that. But it's like, man, you guys had a winning ticket. And now you're just poking people in the eye. You know, it's like, you guys had a winning ticket. Now you're just kind of like, boop. You're like, did that hurt? Boop. You know, you're just poking people in the eyeball, you know, and you're being like, well, why is everybody frustrated? It's like, come on, boys. None of this is new to you, you know? And I would even bet if you go back and you watch some of my early commentary on this, I was like, this is just sort of what's going to happen with the new game. They're going to kind of have to shake things up and figure out, you know, what's too strong and what's not strong enough. They'll have to kind of figure this out. Well, it's been 6 months, so I probably am being more critical now. It wouldn't surprise me at all if you go back to my original video about Nerfs and I was less critical. I was like, you know, they'll figure this out. They're adding new stuff. They're adding new weapons. You know, they don't want the new weapons to feel like garbage and everybody's just using one weapon. Like, that's not good. Like, I think it was breaker, shotgun, personal shield. And I remember saying, like, it makes perfectly good sense to bring those things down and bring them into check. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wonder if I can find my monologue on this. and find exactly what did I suggest back then. I would be actually kind of curious. I would be curious. Helldivers Nerfs. Yeah, here it is. Here's my monologue on this. Some see this as necessaries. Other feels like it's ruined their build, especially as the Helldivers difficulty, at the upper Helldivers difficulty levels. So this is back when they, we did a show this week about how to disrupt the meta and how the main culprits of power, the personal shield, the railgun, and the breaker shotgun all got hit with nerfs. Some see this as necessary, others feel it's ruined the fun. The devs took the time to not just outline the changes, but also to provide the reasons for these changes. Given what we know, they may have just pulled a 900 IQ play. All might be forgiven in just a matter of weeks. Okay? And what did I talk about? Well, there's footage of the flamethrower bringing chargers down. A new meta may be emerging, right? So, how I couched it back then was, if you're going to do this, it only works if you've got something else sort of coming in place of it, if you've got something else kind of coming behind it. So it's still the same spirit of what I've talked about both last week and this week. You are going to have to sometimes bring things down, because if for 6 months everybody just keeps using the same weapons and the same build, you're going to end up in the same category. You're going to end up in the same problem of everybody being bored. So you can't just be like, oh no, it's fine. Like, everybody's running breaker shotgun, railgun, and personal shield. Yeah, we don't need to do anything. That's totally fine. Going in and tweaking some of those things to make them not the only thing worth using certainly needs to happen sometimes. But what you can't do is you can't just do those nerfs and then just kind of shrug at the community and be like, yeah, we too many people were doing it, or too many people were using it. It's like, no, you've got to either have a shifting meta or you've got to bring things up. And I mean, I'll admit, I've changed some of my opinion about this. I really have. The more I've thought about it and the more I've mulled it over in my mind, the more I've thought, rather than try to like justify a nerf and then like soften the blow with the buff, that's why in my video recently, both last week and even 2 weeks ago, I just said, embrace the pendulum of chaos. You know the pendulum's going to swing. Why not swing it and make it crazy and make it fun, right? Like, that to me is where my I believe my view has somewhat evolved. Because I think, like, at the beginning of the year, I was more like, hey, sometimes these nerfs are necessary. Sometimes you have to disrupt the meta, because if you don't disrupt the meta, all you're going to do is have a bunch of bored players in the coming months. Because, like, your new weapons and your new stratagems are going to largely get ignored if there's, like, a one-size-fits-all build that just is eradicating, you know, the hardest content. So I basically said, if you're going to do that, you have to provide something to make it fun. You have to provide something that is sort of the new meta, right? And I think back then, I was trying to sort of do it in a way that was like, hey, sorry, we had to kind of nerf this, but now we've made this really, really strong, as sort of like this, you know, you're just sort of embracing that it's going to go back and forth. I say embrace it fully. You know, I embrace it freely. I embrace it fully. Like, say, listen, we're going to make this a part of the game. Instead of making it like a blog post, like, make it a part of the game. Because again, to me, that's you saying, we get it. We know this is going to be a moving target. We know this is going to be a challenge long term. Why don't we just make it a part of the game? I think I'm going further in my view than I did earlier in the year, when I was like, yeah, you're sometimes going to have to nerf stuff, but at least come behind that nerf and buff some other things and create some other crazy metas. Well, I think at that point, though, people are just going to start to feel manipulated. So that's why I said, we'll just embrace it and make it a part of the game. Like, make it a part of the fabric of the game itself. Instead of it feeling like, I've got to go read patch notes and a blog and a Twitter account so that I can know what's happening and what's been, you know, nerfed and buffed, so I know what to use. You know, if I recall correctly, the flamethrower working so well against chargers was a bug, and Arrowhead left it in the game for so long. Players were having fun with it. Kind of craps on narratives. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that's true. I think the flamethrower was inconsistent against chargers. I theorized it was because there was multiple points of damage, and sometimes the flamethrower was registering multiple points of damage and you'd kill them really fast, and other times it wouldn't. I don't think that stayed in the game, and I also don't think it was a bug. I think it was just an inconsistent thing that could happen sometimes. And I don't think it craps on the narratives. That's one weapon, and that would be one instance. I think it's very clear. I think your read on this and take on this is just way off, Eugene. I think you're way out in left field. I think Arrowhead has shown a consistent lack of care with how they handle these things. They just, the community is irritated and responding negatively. I can't say, like, oh yeah, the community's dead wrong and the dev's dead right. No, it's not that simple. I don't think anybody's right and anybody's wrong. I think the devs are trying to find their way, and they have to be able to figure out player feedback and player behavior and parse through it. And guess what? We had this conversation when the update went out, and I was told, "Oh no, you're way off on this. That the players are going to respond. They're going to come back." No, they didn't. I was exactly dead on right. I said, here's the patch, here's the update, numbers went up, and I was like, the next day they dropped, and I said, that's going to continue. And I was told, well, the War Bond hasn't even come out yet. What'd the War Bond do? What did the Weekend do? Who was proven right? I don't think the devs were proven right. I think the community was proven right. Like, this isn't objective. It's a subjective thing. And subjectively, it's clear. The community is not responding to nerfs. Like, they are responding, but they're not responding in a positive way. This idea of like, oh, they left in a bug on flamethrowers, I think that's, number one, that's unverified. Number two, nobody's running flamethrowers on chargers right now that I've seen. And even if they left the bug in, they just nerfed all the fire anyway, so who cares? Like, that's not even an option for the chargers. How do you have patch notes that don't even cover what you buff, says Fuzzy. It's wild to me, and I don't think they knew that lasers would start fires now. I think they were just doing crap on the fly and seeing what happens. I mean, I advocated for shadow buffing some stuff to see if you could get some organic word of mouth, but you'd have to go pretty crazy. I don't think you could just do like a couple of buffs on things. I mean, you'd have to break a couple weapons and see if you can't get people talking. I had people disagree with me, and they might have been right. I might have been wrong. They were like, no, you can't ghost buff stuff right now. You need to talk to the community and tell them what you're doing. And I think that pushback gave birth to the idea in my brain of like, why not put it in the game? Why not create an NPC or a computer or a station or some messaging system that says, these are the weapons that are now experimental and strong, and these weapons are no longer. And so what you're doing is you're creating an internal mechanism in the game that's rotating and shaking up the meta in a way that's fun, true to the lore and the identity of the game, without the need to be like, we have a patch, or we have this, or we have that, or we're going to do a stream, or we're going to talk in our Discord, or we're listening to feedback. It's like, I think you can create an intrinsic pendulum swing mechanism in the game so that players know what to expect. And as I said, that gives you headroom. If normal weapons are down here where this hand is, and the experimental weapons are up here, kind of crazy, kind of chaotic, but risky, like unsafe mode on a railgun can kill you, right? In between your base weapons and experimental weapons is all this headroom. You could start kind of buffing underrepresented weapons and giving other weapons a chance because you have all this headroom. You're not in this. I think you run out of headroom really, really quickly when you're in the balance philosophy. Like, well, let's try to balance the game. Oh, forget that. I continue to think that that's just a waste of time. I was playing last week, says Takashi, and the railgun got into the conversation somehow. One of the players said, unfortunately, I was not a player back when the railgun was good. Even a player who never used the gun when it was considered OP, overly popular, knows that gun is not good right now. Nothing could be more objective about the state that it is in. Right, but I think the railgun and its unsafe mode is the picture that I keep coming back to. I'm like, that's what you do. You make things unsafe and crazy and unpredictable. Why? That's Helldivers. Like, you're literally dropping ordnance right next to your teammates. And a 20 bomb from MASH, 20 members to jumpstart us on the way to needing 100 a day to hit the weekly goal, 120. Thank you. So, wait, no, 130. I did not add that right. We were at 110. That is my bad. I was saying 20 and typed 20. 130. I owe you guys 5 members. If you got a gifted member from MASH, be sure to say thank you to him. This guy continues to deliver just so much generosity to the community. If you can afford your own membership, man, bump up to Member Plus. It's $1 more. It's $6 a month. And you make room for people who cannot afford a membership. You're giving up your seat to somebody who can get those gifted memberships when I do it, or when MASH does it, or when anybody does it. So thank you so much, MASH, for doing that. If you guys have not hit the like button yet, be sure to do that. Let's set our sights on, let's get 400 likes right now. I guarantee you there's a bunch of you who have not yet done the like button, man. And let's do it. And I know Stone Spire has said that he will gift 10 members when we get to 500 Member Plus and above. Right now we have 497 people at Member Plus and above. So thank you so much to the people that have done that. Another question here from Member Q&A. If you are a member, you can submit questions in the live chat and they'll hit this form. And Mediocre Milton says, do you think YouTube will ever get chat integration for games? Cult of the Lamb with Twitch chat integration made the game so much more fun and interesting. I'm not sure what YouTube's long-term plan is, but I know they can do stuff like that, and I would like them to do more of it. I don't think it's that difficult. I really don't think it's that difficult. Flamethrower's ability to kill chargers was a bug fix, not a nerf. So, contrary to what you said, they didn't leave it in the game for fun. They fixed it, and then it made it not work. My read on that was 100% accurate. No, as what you said in chat was 100% not accurate, Eugene. You said, I believe they left it in, and that kills the narrative. They didn't leave it in. They literally fixed the bug. Instead of being like, oh, ha, 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 that's funny, have fun with it, they fixed the bug. You conveyed the exact opposite in chat. You conveyed that, like, well, that craps on the narrative because they left the bug in. What are you talking about? You just now quoted something that says the opposite. They fixed the bug. And the framing is, oh, it wasn't a nerf, they fixed the bug. It doesn't matter. Like, that goes against what you said. You made it seem like they were just all about having a ball. They let it be in the game for 5 months and they just now fixed it. Again, a complete and utter false read and false frame of the situation. The CEO just said their lead time is really long. It wasn't in the game for 5 months because they wanted people to have fun. It was in the game for 5 months because their lead time is long. It took them a long time to fix it. Your read on this couldn't be more inaccurate, Eugene. You're not even paying attention to what's going on. The CEO just said the reason that our things come to the game and take so long, and we just did a bunch of stuff that you guys said you don't like us doing, is because our lead time is long. The reason that bug was in the game for 5 months is because they're a small studio with long lead time. They didn't leave the bug in there to be like, have fun, guys. We want you to have fun, have some chaos. They have not yet pushed out a blog, a statement from a CM, or a statement from the CEO that conveys they want people to have fun, chaotic insanity. They've not said that at all. They've said the opposite. They've said the opposite. They're going for fine-tuning. They're going for balance. It's a blend of like action game and milsim. They've not once conveyed that they're okay with chaos and broken things being in the game because, hey, you guys are having fun with it. The CEO just explained why a bug like that would stay in the game that long. Because their lead time's long. Their ability to update the game is not very quick. And I referenced that in my video this morning, and I said, this reminds me of when we heard similar things about Destiny. They would deliver a season. Everyone was like, why do you guys deliver a season doing the very types of things that we just spent an entire season complaining about? And then Bungie came out and said, a lot of these seasons are in parallel development, so a lot of those things are already set in motion. So when you provide the feedback, you're not going to see that feedback make landfall for probably 2 or 3 seasons. The same thing's going on right now in Helldivers. Going to go find their statements around it from the time they confirmed it was a bug. The CEO just explained why their updates take so long to hit. So, no, you're incorrect. I don't think your read of this is correct at all. They didn't leave the flamethrower bug in the game just for fun. It stayed in the game that long because their lead time takes a long time for things to get fixed. It was 100% the discussion around the flamethrower in March and April. Listen, you can't have them. If they came out and said, we're going to leave it in the game for you guys to have some fun, like, Somebody in chat just said 6 months to fix the EAT Quasar bug. It's not even on the known issues list. Look how slow they are to fix bugs, and you want to give them credit for the flamethrower bug as like they left it in so people could have fun? There are things on the known issues list that still haven't been resolved, and the game's been out for 6 months. I think your read on this is completely... I'm not sure why. It just seems very jaded. It's like... You're prone to like go at the community for some reason in this regard. And it's like the developers have made it very, very clear that they're not quick to fix things, and they are very much leaning into a more balanced meta. Eugene's in the Discord saying these things. They are very much pushing for a balanced meta, and I think that's a mistake. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think you can consistently push out updates and dialogue and commentary about how you want to fine-tune things and you want things to be balanced, and then you're trying to claim, no, this crap's on the narrative. They let the flamethrower bug stay in the game for a while. What do you mean they let it stay in the game for a while? The bugs stay in this game for a long time, as is been indicated by their CEO, because their lead times are long. I do not think you... And even if I grant you your example with the flamethrower, that's one weapon and one bug, and then all these other things that they've done seem to be counter evidence. I think it's a lot easier to make a case right now. If I was arguing a case in court that Arrowhead is focusing too much on balance, it's way easier for me. It's way easier for me to make that case than to make the case that you're trying to make, that like, no, that narrative's false. They want people to have fun and they want chaos to be in the game. They've quite literally done everything to work against that. I don't see evidence that that's what they want for the game, which is why I'm pushing for allowing the hardcore players to more handcraft their experience, right, with modifiers or handicaps, and then embrace this sort of narrative of like there's going to be chaos and busted weapons in the game on a regular basis. The narrative I'm seeing is they want to nerf people's fun, that they don't care about players enjoying the game. Yeah, and I interacted with a comment this morning, and give me some credit. I told somebody that. I said, I don't think that this is malicious. I said that this morning. I said, I don't think that they're trying to ruin your fun. I don't think that they're your enemy. I literally said that in my experience with games like this, players that play the game too long they end up in this us versus them mentality. Like, the developer's against us, and we have to try to defend the game and make sure the game, is fun. And I said, I think that ends up shading people's view of everything. So if a weapon gets nerfed, it's not because the developer's trying to find their way and might be a little misguided. It's because the developers hate us and want to ruin our fun. I agree with you. I think that's an overstatement of the position, but the position, even hyperbolically stated, is still a good representation of what the community thinks. A large portion of the community feels like your philosophy at Arrowhead is not aiming at the right target. You're trying to nerf and balance and fine-tune, and that feels out of step with the identity of a game that quite literally on the back of the jewel case says, use overpowered weapons. Use overpowered weapons. And I don't think that they're accurately owning that identity. I think they've got their target set on the wrong thing. I'm not getting one guide. Like, I'm actually going to delete that from chat. Hide. Don't do that. Having a lengthy conversation with the person is not getting one guide. Like, I literally just did Q&A with a couple of people and went back and forth with their idea and their question for a matter of minutes. How long have I been conversing with Eugene about this? When did he first put a comment in Discord about it? 12:10. It's been 7 minutes. Don't do that. That's obnoxious. This is literally a live stream that's been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And some of you guys do this thing where it's like, if I decide to have a lengthy debate with somebody, you're like, there he goes getting one guide. A 7-minute conversation's getting one guide? Come on. That's ridiculous. He put his first comment about it in the Discord 7 minutes ago. Don't do that. That's smarmy and not needed. Sneaky Wolf says, do you really think Helldivers could bounce back? Or do you think the state of the game has already left a sour taste in the community? I had a couple comments this morning I had a couple comments this morning on this subject. And I said, listen, I don't think this game, I've said it multiple times, I don't think this game's beyond repair. I don't even think the situation's that dire. Right? I don't think the situation is that dire. They still have a very healthy player base. That's hard to say. They still have a very healthy player base. even as far as they've dropped on their concurrence, right? Even as far as they've dropped on their concurrence, they are still in like fifth or sixth place on Steam for most played game. Like that's not bad. Like that's not bad, dude. Like that's still pretty good. So I've said this multiple times today. I am not trying to paint this picture of like the situation's dire and oh my gosh. I said this earlier. The thing they need to focus on now is all the decisions they make in the next couple of months. The next 6 months I actually think are pretty pivotal. Okay? The next 6 months. So when they like walking to the 1 year anniversary of the game coming out, okay? That's what's going to happen in 6 months. I think these next like 6 months are pretty pivotal because it will set a trajectory. And I gave the analogy of like a guy in a plane, and if he set the trajectory off by like a degree, they would end up in the wrong country, okay? They have to consider that the decisions that they make now will set trajectories for this game's long-term health. And I've advocated for stop reacting. That would be my loudest and clearest message to them is you've got to stop reacting. You need to pull all of the player feedback in and set a course and say, where are we taking this game? I always said this about Anthem. The last time I went to an in-person meeting with content creators about Anthem, I said it there, and I said it to one of the guys in charge. I said, you guys are talking about content. You need to be talking about the vision for the game's future. Where are you taking Anthem? How can I get invested in a game if I don't know where it's going? I don't know what you're doing. You're just like adding content. Like, okay, what am I going to do with that? So, same thing I'm going to say to Arrowhead. You need to decide the type of game that you want. And listen, if you want a fine-tuned, balanced, sort of irreverent milsim game, then make it. But I'm here to tell you, you didn't promote the game that way. You didn't market the game that way. The game's identity and the way it talks and the way it plays out, the way the action plays out, it doesn't feel like that's the game that you were setting your sights on. But if that's the game you want to build, then own it and say that. And then pursue that. Pursue that North Star. I happen to think that they can kind of do both. I believe they can kind of have their cake and they can eat it too. I believe they can create an environment where the more hardcore players can fine-tune their experience. They can do modifiers. They can do handicaps. They can do things to give themselves that environment of this is really challenging, this is really tough, and then reward them accordingly. But then the rest of us can have fun blowing stuff up and using experimental weapons and like that to me I think would be the right way forward. Like, don't try to build a mill sim, but if people want to play it that way, you can equip the player to do that without the rest of us feeling like, which way's up, man? What's getting nerfed today? If they want the Milsim experience, let us customize our own weapons if that's how they want to run it, including ammo, magazines, and damage types. Jarena Forever says, they don't know what kind of game that they want. Shams always does that centrist reply where he plays both sides of the argument and then makes excuses and gives empty promises. I'll admit, reading the CEO's commentary on this, I very much felt like he was sort of... I really felt like he kind of he talks out of both sides of his mouth. It's like they're trying to keep everybody happy, and I actually think what's funny is I actually think that's what they should try to do, but they need to just be honest about it. Like, we want the milsim hardcore guys to be able to have fun and have a more serious experience, maybe a more balanced experience. And yeah, we want the casual dads to have fun too. I think both can happen, but I think on their current trajectory, you're going to continue to drive the more casual people away. Ashen Hollow says, been banging on this drum. Do you think they need to tone down the heavy armor enemy spawn rate? Would that help at all? I have not played enough recently to get into that level of specific feedback. I can't speak to whether or not there's too much or too little of that. Generally speaking, I feel like there's a lot of people that have been giving that feedback. Like, there's just, the enemy saturation's the problem. I think they even acknowledged that in one of the comments, that, like, they're acknowledging, oh no, I'm sorry, they acknowledge some enemies just take way too much time to die. So they're acknowledging that there are some issues with time to kill and maybe even saturation. Your idea of optional modifiers is solid, Hades-esque. Have you pushed that idea to them by chance? I haven't. I just came up with that kind of today as we were talking about it, because I do think I don't ever want to rob Peter to pay Paul. So you never want to basically start crafting the game for the more casual players, and then the hardcore players feel like, what the frick, you just threw everything into chaos and now the hard content's too easy. Broken Surprise renews the VIP for 18 months. Welcome back, Broken Surprise. Bumping the line to 131. Thank you so much. The next milestone where I have to gift is 150. Thank you for doing that. So yeah, I've not pushed that idea out. Now, my idea about the R&D station and experimental weapons, that's in a video that got put in a lot of places. A lot of people took that video and like threw it in a Discord and threw it on Reddit. So we'll see if that gets on their radar, because I think that's a great context for what could allow them to do what I feel is necessary, which is create a context where the pendulum is allowed to swing and the players are excited when it swings, not angry when it swings. Right now, when the pendulum swings, everybody's ticked off. It's like, what'd you nerf this time? And they don't care that you've buffed other things. They don't care. You have to create a context where the pendulum swing is exciting and celebrated, instead of right now what it is it makes everybody angry, and then everybody, comes back but then doesn't stay for very long. And what you can end up doing is calcifying your core audience. You're creating like calcification between the core audience and the fair weather fans, and that's not a good instance. You don't want to do that. You want there to be cartilage between those two sides of the player base, so that when they all come pouring back, they can have fun and spend money, and the player base is full and popping, and that's healthy for your game. You don't want fair weather fans coming back to the game. This sucks. They nerf stuff. I'm bored. I'm not staying. And then they leave, and you almost calcify that core audience. It's like, screw you. Get out then. Don't come back. Get good. Go play something else. Like, that's not good for your game long term. That just creates a gatekeepy environment that I don't think is good for the health of your game. A couple more comments on the video, and we are going to need to shift gears. I don't want to shift gears because the support and the viewership has just been crazy today. If you're brand new to the channel and you've never been here before, hit subscribe, hit the bell button. I do shows like this Monday through Friday, not just about Helldivers. If you're only looking for Helldivers content, it'll be here every once in a while, but I do talk about Xbox and PlayStation, and we talked about Bungie and Destiny and Marathon, all kinds of gaming content here. I am safe for work, so you can make sure, and if you're going to listen to me in the background of your day, you don't got to worry about the kind of language that I'm going to be using. We will be going to a members only end of the day writers room when this stream is done, so consider becoming a member or gifting some members, which is how people are doing the Q&A. But somebody left a comment here on my upload and said it's not just nerfs, by the way. It's quite apparent they don't know what they're doing as a live service is concerned. I definitely think they are finding their way, and I think part of the problem is that everything we're experiencing right now in Helldivers 2, Sony did not fire the original CEO. He voluntarily picked his successor, and he stepped into a creative role. So, no, I don't agree with that read on that. I don't think that what happened with the PSN login was like you need to step down. No. You don't let somebody stay at the company and appoint their successor if you feel like they need to be like reprimanded. I don't think so. I also think you could just tell that the former CEO was involved far more heavily into the conversation and the creative process than a CEO should be. So, anyway, I think that back to this comment from Shane Reagan on my upload. I think they're finding their way, right? To me, and we're still living in the shadow of the game exploding in February. I mean that. I still think that they as a company are still trying to figure things out because they never expected any of this, right? They didn't expect any of this. Detective Seeds Platinums with a 10 bomb takes us to 141. Guys, if you're a fan of Detective Seeds content, make sure and check out and help jumpstart his new channel, Detective Seeds Platinums, where he's going to be putting his platinum content, and he has sort of pushed into that more than he was doing before. And if you like that kind of content, you like those, those kind of videos, make sure and throw him a subscription there. Real easy to find him. It's just 3 words: Detective Seeds Platinums. And I know he launched that channel very recently. People are saying let Super Earth burn. The balance in the game is fine. Could be better, sure. People are just whining. Hear me out. Just don't send more than half of your staff on a 6-week vacation in the middle of the most critical stage of your game. That's probably true. Yeah. You say buffing everything doesn't work. Well, cite some effing examples then. You won't, because you can't. Buffing things doesn't mean they have to be God tier. Buffing things simply makes them more usable. No, I don't need to point to games. It's a basic understanding of what buffing does. Let me grant your wish. I'm going to wave a magic wand over Helldivers right now. I'm going to grant your wish, dear commenter. I'm going to grant you your wish. Everything has been buffed. Everything. Anything that wasn't the best has now been buffed. Do you want to know what you just did? You made the game fun for a little while. What do you do in 3 months? What do you do? You just leave it be? No standouts? No metas? Nothing that is exciting? I said in my previous video, I said, picture a board, a wood board with a bunch of nails in it, and one nail is out. It's like way up higher than the rest. Now, I could smack that nail down and bring it in line with all the rest, or you could raise the other nails to the level of that one. You're getting the same result. You just end up with a bland meta of everything's kind of the same, everything's been fine-tuned to be in line with each other, and then where's the excitement and the chaos? Well, what happens when you put a new weapon in the game? You better make sure it's not stronger than everything else, right? Everything's been buffed, right? Everything's been buffed. You can't just buff for forever. And even if you manage to buff things to the point that everything's sort of balanced, you've achieved nothing different. You haven't achieved anything any different. You still end up with a bland, flatline group of weapons. There's an announcement from Baskinator in their Discord. What did Baskinator say? I think they're acknowledging the feedback. And a lot of the comments that need to be approved for my video, right, are, you're whiny baby, go play something else. Like, like, I don't even complain in the video. I just say, this is what people are saying. This is the response. I think there's a better path forward. I do. They give an excuse. We haven't made a game in 8 years, which gives the opportunity to make a list of things not to do when you make your game according to other games by learning from examples of what not to do. Is a Discord still a thing? I think so. Game balance is rough because power creep is such a trap for a game dev. Right. Like, I don't think people realize that if all you do is buff, you're not solving problems, you're just kicking the can further down the road. And it would be fun for a little while. I won't deny that. It'd be fun. It'd be fun to be like, hey, everything got turned up. Wow. What do you do in 3 months when we're all doing the same thing? We're all looking for the one standout weapon. We're all looking for the one standout build. Because eventually something rises to the surface. Eventually something is seen as the best or the strongest. No matter how you shake it. No matter how you shake it, that's going to happen. And then you're going to be in the exact same scenario of, well, we either try to rein in what was been discovered as the meta, or we make the enemy stronger, or we introduce new weapons, and then those new weapons are either going to have to be stronger, but then if they're too strong, then they have to be toned down. I again think the best way forward is just to say the pendulum will swing. Why don't we control how it swings? The pendulum's gonna swing. Why don't we just control how it swings? You know? You have to accept that in this type of a game, that's what's going to happen. You are absolutely going to be in that scenario, and just embrace it. I think embrace it and have fun with it. I'm just going to keep coming back to that. All right, I think we have 2 more questions. Raymond, what direction do you think Destiny is taking? If Sony takes full control, do you think you'd be able to play and stream again? I mean, if Sony takes total control, it seems like that's kind of happening, like back office operations are getting integrated. We have some potential options at our disposal. I don't think I would ever turn into a Destiny content creator ever again. You know, I got half a mind. I got half a mind to, to just make a bunch of content of my wife playing it and get her commentary on it. I mean, I think that could be very entertaining. Is this the new message? This thing here, Fuzzy? Here, let's read this. Let's read what they've said here. Oops. Hang on. I'm going to pull it up on my secondary computer. Did they just do that just now, Fuzzy? Let's take a look at what they're saying. Hang on. This message to the community from the game director. Fellow Helldivers, I want to directly address the feedback you've raised about the Escalation of Freedom update. We've spent the last week listening to feedback, reflecting about the path ahead for Helldivers 2, and how we want to continue developing the game. In short, we didn't hit our target with the latest update. Some things we just didn't get right, and other more fundamental inconsistencies in our approach to game balance and game direction. So what this means is all the people telling us to shut up, quit whining, get good, and play another game, you're wrong. All of this is on us, and we are going to own that. As many of you have pointed out, and we agree, that matters. What matters most now is action, not talk. To that end, here's what we intend to do in the upcoming days. Okay, our aim within the next 60 days. Okay, continue to re-examine our approach to balance. Our intention is that balance should be fun, not balanced for the sake of balance. Okay, update how the fire damage mechanic works to tweak how the flamethrower serves as a close-range support weapon. A quick straight revert won't work, as it would break other things, so they can't just walk it back. Rework gameplay to prevent excessive ragdolling. Rethink our design approach to primary weapons and create a plan for making combat more engaging. I think this has been a difficult thing for them since the beginning. That, like, primary weapons are something that everybody's just going to kind of lean on. Like, you're just going to shoot it a bunch, so you're going to want to use it a bunch, but then, they want you to lean on, like, your other teammates, and they want you to lean on your stratagems, so you can't have a primary weapon being like a Swiss Army one-size-fits-all solution to, like, every enemy except for, like, the big bads. So I do think that's always going to be a challenge for them, but I do think primary weapons have always felt not very primary, right? Reprioritize bug fixes that are more immediate gameplay impacting bugs, improve game performance, and rework chargers. Okay. Additionally, from a bigger picture perspective, we will be exploring the creation of opt-in beta test environments to improve our testing process, and we consider this a high priority. I mean, this could obviously be good because they could find things, you know, or maybe they could get in front of a mistake before it hits the public. That certainly could help. Okay, I think that's a good idea. Post regular player surveys to gather more insight and feedback. Improve our process for patch release notes, providing more context and reasoning behind changes. And then more blog posts and streams where we expand on these topics for those interested. We also want to thank you for your patience. We're grateful that so many of you provided constructive feedback and suggestions on the latest update. Michael E., Game Director at Arrowhead Game Studios. So, here's the thing. You know, people in chat are like, they said this before, they've said this before, they've said this before. I'm just going to go back to my original statements on this. All right? They need to, right now, keep themselves from just reacting. That would be the biggest mistake. Don't react. They need to chart a course. They do. They need to chart a course. Where are you going with this game? What is the end goal? Where do you want to see this game in 6 months? And then, what do you hope those 6 months lead to, like long term? What's the North Star? Like, where are we going? I still see, I'm just going to be honest with you, my gut reaction to this, you're still too worried about balance. So my confidence is not very strong. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I still see way too much language in here that centers around balance, and I think that's a fundamental mistake for this game. I'm going to continue to say that. I think that is a fundamental philosophy misjudgment. It's like, no, I don't think that you should be seeking balance in this game. I don't. That shakes my confidence. If in 6 months you guys have really assessed how you can do better and better patch notes and get better feedback and really pursue balance, I don't think we're going to move the car anywhere. Right? I don't think the car is going to move. I feel like the tires are going to spin. You know? It's unfortunate because it reads heartfelt. I feel like they mean well. I really do. I'm like, listen, I think you guys mean well, but it's like watching somebody try to climb a mountain and there's a pathway right there. It's like, stop doing that. Go over here. This is easier than you're making it. Again, my personal take and belief, this is the best game to say balance is boring. Just jettison that from the game. I'm going to keep coming back to that. The two core pillars that Helldivers should own is that balance is boring and embrace the pendulum of chaos. And I think that would give them a much brighter future. I think they're just going to end up spinning their tires in the mud, and they're not going to actually get the game into anywhere different than it is. And if they're okay with that, so be it. If they're okay with the player base largely staying where it is and not really having any kind of resurgence, and again, I'm not saying like get back to peak numbers. I think that that's impossible. I don't think you can put the toothpaste back in, but I think there could be a resurgence. I do. That resurgence, I believe, is possible. I don't think it's possible if they're still saying, we're going to pursue balance. No, forget it then. You're not going to get there. I've said it. I've said it many, many times. Nobody comes clamoring back to a game because it's balanced. Nobody's making that video. They did it, boys. They balanced the game. Come on back. No. Nobody's making that video. Nobody's making that tweet. Nobody's making that Reddit post. Nobody. Guys, they threw balance out the window. It's a blast. And if your hardcore players would get upset by it, again, I think you could create a context where they could give them the ability to custom make their own environments where they're rewarded for making the content more challenging or more, fine-tuned. Give that toolbox to the players. Give that toolbox to the players. Let them do that. I want to go to Helldive level 9 or 10, and I want to handicap our team with this and that and this, and do the, and then you get rewarded accordingly. And then the rest of us can be like, have fun, dude. I'm blowing stuff up. I'm laughing with my buddies. I just think do it. Put R&D in the game. Put a computer in the game, and they make experimental versions of the weapons and stratagems. And every couple of months, they say, "Thank you for your service, Helldivers. Those weapons and stratagems are no longer in experimental form. We have a new batch of weapons and stratagems in experimental form." And that's how you bring rhythmic chaos to the game. That's how you set expectations to players that a buffed, crazy strong weapon or crazy strong meta can't stay that way for forever. So the expectations are set that it's rhythmic, it's fresh, it's fun. You always have a reason to come back. You always have something new to experience. You dovetail this with war bonds that are then lined up with the experimental weapons. If you're going to do like a fire update, right? It's a fire war bond. It's a fire update. Do a bunch of experimental fire weapons and a bunch of experimental fire stratagems. And then whenever that's over and you're doing something different, hey, it's electricity time. A bunch of electricity weapons on the war bond. You have a bunch of experimental electricity weapons and a bunch of experimental, electricity stratagems. Keeping the meta fresh, making people come back and like test out weapons that they have never really used before, trying out builds they've never really used before, all within the context of knowing this won't last. Passive FOMO, passive expectation setting that things can't stay strong for forever. And when you do that, then you create an environment where people do want to come back. And they might only play for a couple of weeks and complete the war bond and leave, but that's totally fine. You'd rather have them doing that than coming back and saying, well, it's just boring. You just nerfed everything. You're going for balance. Nobody really cares about balance. Your hardcore players care about balance. Give them the tools. Give them the tools to tweak and hone that more milsim environment if they want it, and let the rest of us blow stuff up. Balance is a joke. It's subjective. The assault rifles are a joke right now. Purifier is so dumb right now. Right, and I think the problem is, AOZ, all that's lost in the fog of war. Oh! That's all lost in the fog of war. Nobody knows that's even probably going on right now, AOZ. And the sad truth is, I don't know how you push through the anger and everybody's vision's clouded to be like, we made stuff strong. I don't know how you do that without, again, making it something that's like fun, lighthearted, and like part of the game. Imagine what a concept, a fire war bond where all the fire weapons are buffed 30%. Almost like that would work for the war bond season. It makes too much sense. We got to go to Writer's Room very, very shortly, guys. So now's a great time to push just a little bit more. 150, and I owe you some more members, and we can bring some more people with us. Let me take a couple more questions. We only have 2 more here. Infinite says, what do you think about the Galactic War? It feels too prolonged and drawn out. They wanted to take a long time for it to play out. Is this rewarding enough? I said earlier that I think they pumped the brakes on adding new enemy types. It felt like the Illuminate were right around the corner. It felt like maybe the Cyborgs were right around the corner, and then nothing. I do think the vacations and the struggles and they're really, I think, trying to wrangle a game, at scale down to the ground. I don't think they were expecting this many people. I don't think they were expecting this much attention. I very much think they're along for the ride, which is both admirable, but also means we have to have expectations that like this is going to be a bumpy ride, right? Because of that, I think they paused on all of that. I think at some level, Illuminate and other things were supposed to be in the game right now. Comatose Joe becomes a member. Thank you so much, bumping the line to 142. There you go. When you guys hit that join button and become a member, you can help us hit the goal, and now you get access to the extra members content. So, and Hilly with the last question before we have to kind of shift gears here. Do more live service games need to vision cast? Oh, that's a whole other subject, Hilly. I've kind of talked about this recently, where the struggle with a live service game is, I've drawn the analogy to dating. When you go on a first date, you want it to be romantic. You want to kind of win the person over and woo them, and you want to be true to yourself, but you also, want to be careful with, not saying too much and not saying too little and all of that, so that they find you attractive and winsome, and then they want to go out on a second date. And then as things progress, maybe it turns into a strong and healthy relationship and a marriage and everything else. And so for live service games really struggle with this, because when you play a a non-live service game, they don't have to worry about whether or not you're playing their game 2 months later. They just have to worry about whether or not you have a good time in the 20-hour or 15-hour campaign that they build. That's all they have to worry about. I think it's an easier, at some levels, an easier assignment. A live service game kind of has to sit down on their first date with you and spill their guts and be like, well, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is how many children I want to have, this is how I want to retire, this is the kind of house I want to have, this is the kind of job career path I'd like to take. And that's too much on a first date. You're going to overwhelm the person. They're going to be like, what the frick? I don't even know your middle name yet, and I know how many children you want to have. So to me, a live service game has to set and cast vision, because if they don't, then you're like, well, why would I commit to your game? What are you going to do? People typically want to see like a roadmap. They want to see some type of content plan and some type of commitment. Well, the difficulty with that is that can be too much information. That can overwhelm somebody and make them feel like, what the frick? Like, this is too much. Like, there's no romance, right? You need time to almost like fall in love with the game. So then you're like, oh my gosh, I want to play this game for a super long time. That's really difficult when a live service game has to be like, hey, do you like that? We got more. More's coming. We got this, and then we got this. And don't worry, in 6 months, then we got this. And just be assured, we've got content planned for 24 months. And in the 24 months, you're going to get this. And you're like, bro, let me play the game first. But if they don't do that, it's difficult to foster confidence. Like, how do you foster confidence in the game and its longevity if they don't do that? I don't have the answer to this, by the way. I am merely saying this is a huge challenge. Like, what did Arrowhead do? Oh, we're going to do a new war bond every month. What did I say after like the second and third one? I said that's too much. You're not going to be able to keep up with that cadence, and you're just going to overwhelm players. And anybody that takes a couple months off, anybody that takes a break from the game is going to come back and be like, my gosh, there's too many war bonds. You know, too much of a good thing is a saying for a reason. And so I think that is a significant challenge. That is a significant challenge for live service games. To be like, hey, do you like this? We've got content for 2 years. Do you want to, don't you want to come back and play for 2 years? And you're like, I don't even know yet. It would be like on a first date, somebody being like, so if we get married, we're going to have 7 kids, and we're going to name them all with letters starting with J. And I already know that I hope that Josephine's our first baby. And she, what the frick are you doing, bro? Like, I don't even know if I like you yet. I don't even know if I like you. I don't know if I like your game. And you're sitting here talking about, the next 2 years worth of content. What the heck are you talking about? And a 5-bomb from Alex here at the buzzer to take us to 147. I'm going to schedule Writer's Room. You guys have 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to drive the member count as high as you can for the day while I am scheduling Writer's Room. If you have not pressed like yet, please do that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Massive turnout today. I hope you guys enjoy this type of content. I hope you enjoy lively, gaming discussions in a live environment. We keep it respectful, right? We keep it respectful, and, we try to keep it light. We try to keep it fun, and today I think was excellent. Very, very good conversations and disagreements and back and forth. A lot of the times Eugene and I are agreeing on everything, and today we didn't. He says, make a game that's good in a few weeks, months, and be done. If people want to keep playing, they will. The dev needs to move on, though. Big Juicer renews for 25 months with a member plus, and then Alex gifts a member, and that takes us to 149. Guys, remember, when you are at a member plus tier of membership and above, your renewals count for this. So always consider bumping up. We need 3 people to bump up to Member Plus to hit our goal of 500 people at Member Plus and above. And Alex does it. He walks it all the way to 150. Thank you, sir. I now owe you guys 5 more members. Thank you guys so much for the insane support of the channel today. I hope you guys like the channel. I hope you come back. I hope you decide to become a member and support us directly. You will notice this is not a very large channel. We just celebrated 40. Oh wait, hang on. What am I doing? I'm setting up redirect for Writer's Room. We just celebrated 40,000 members. All right, it's not a very large channel for full-time streaming and full-time content creation. We are able to do this. We are able to do this because of your memberships, because of your gifts, your super chats, and your daily support. And if you're like, man, I can't do that. Money's tight right now. then keep coming back and you might get a gifted membership. Keep coming back. We appreciate you guys so much and all that you do for what we do here. All right, the writer's room is set. I'm paid up. You got 3 minutes. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to scramble and get, 50 members in 3 minutes. Probably not. That's unprecedented. All right, there we go. Redirect is set up. Huge turnout today for this. Thank you guys so much. You'll be back. Thank you so much, Jay Farrow. Your name obviously makes me think of the guy from SNL that's like phenomenal at impersonations. Super talented guy, Jay Farrow. So appreciate you being here and joining the conversations. Seriously. And listen, I'm not necessarily, correct on all this stuff. I'm just trying to throw out ideas. I'm trying to help and be more productive than just, this sucks, you guys suck, this is lame. Like, I'm trying to be like, hey, I actually think there's a path forward for this game. I think they could put things in a really, really good place to give them a little bit better health and a little bit better return player number. I don't know if they ever can get back to where they were. I think that's unrealistic, but I certainly think they could get better return than they're getting right now. And I think they're admitting that. I think they're admitting that. And a 10 bomb from Kat. She says, are you kidding me? Takes us to 160. She's like, let's get a member train at the buzzer and push the number to 200. Is anybody going to help Kat push the line? She's throwing out that Hail Mary. You guys have 2 minutes. Can't be real. No, Xbox buying Warner Brothers games is completely made up, and I don't know why people are continuing to cover it. It was fake artwork. The one guy, they misspelled the word fear. They literally put fear on the promotional picture, and it was F-E-E-R. Like, it's not happening. Reputable news outlets have basically said, ignore that guy. He just makes stuff up. I mean, that's not happening. Jirina forever fear me. Yeah, fear me. Fear me. I talk a lot of crap about Helldivers too, but I still play every day for the daily, even if I don't need it, but I still want to see what happens when the bots take over Super Earth. I kind of hope it happens. All right, you got a minute warning. Your 1 minute warning, and we're getting out of here. We're going to go to Writer's Room. Writer's Room is something for members only. It ends the day. It's behind the scenes. You get to come with us. Soul Train bumps the line by 1. He's kind of like throwing it out there. He's like, come on. If we all help, it can happen. And he bumps the line by 1. 161. Thank you, Soul Train. I think I'm more interested in if they try to manipulate the Galactic War to work against what the players are trying to do. Right? That's what I'm curious. Like, are they going to try to manipulate the outcome, Because I think that would cause people to get really upset. If they're like, no, let Super Earth burn. And then the developers are like, we're not going to let you do that. I think that'll take away, some of the charm. I think that'll take away some of the charm. So. We have Sony's trailer next week, and we'd like to share it. Yes, I accept the embargo. I would gladly take a peek at that. All right, let's go to Writer's Room. I'm going to spam a link in chat, and you guys can come with us. I'm also going to redirect. Hey, thanks so much for being a member. And you may have gotten a gifted member today. Another huge day. 161 on the week. I've also gifted all the members that I owe. So just today, including people renewing and people upgrading, and my gifts, 117 members on the day. So thank you on just today. And we are 3 people away from the Member Plus goal. We want to see 500 people at Member Plus and above. And then every 100 we're going to celebrate. So we'll celebrate at 600 and beyond. We're trying to get to 1,000. I'll celebrate on Saturdays with you guys. I know a lot of members can't make it to Friday nights, so we are going to do that. And then Stone Spire's going to give 10. So thank you to everybody who has upgraded and got us really close to that. I'm going to end the previous stream about Helldivers, and I am going to change that thumbnail. And boy, oh boy, that upload